it being 6:18, I'll open the planning board meeting and looking for a motion to accept the minutes of March the 20th.
So moved.
Interesting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
You got a second? Discussion? All right, since there's nobody. Corey's not on?
Corey is not here.
All right, so, Sandy,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Arno,
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Yes.
Dave, yes. And we don't have the April 3rd meeting, so we'll move right over to our FEMA president. And yes, I'd like to also introduce Mike Colagnesi, who is now an alternate member of the planning board.
Welcome.
Yeah. He hasn't been sworn at yet. He hasn't been sworn at yet.
Well,
That's great.
congratulations, though.
Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Okay,
Good to go? All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is James Mannion. I work for FEMA Region 1. The FEMA Region 1 office assists communities in the 6 states of New England. I'm very excited to be here today and to tell you a little bit about the program I work in at FEMA. To start, Sarah Bariluk and I will be using the term BRIC, the acronym BRIC, that is Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program. The BRIC community kind of rolls off the tongue very nicely. It's 6. So for many years, FEMA's programs were focused on what we call reactive disaster spending. So funds were spent in places that had disasters. Now we've shifted much of our focus to investing in community resilience. And by resilience, I mean stronger and more prepared. Stronger infrastructure and current plans create a more prepared community. FEMA provides many financial grants to help communities be more resilient before a disaster strikes, but the Direct Technical Assistance Initiative is not one of those financial grants. DTA, Direct Technical Assistance, is designed to help communities like Southbridge build a road to those financial grants that we offer. Having an adopted hazard mitigation plan is really step 1 in the process of applying for those financial grants, because it is required to be eligible for most of the hazard mitigation grants that we offer. So I think of a hazard mitigation hazard mitigation plan, sorry, as a foundation and a concerted effort to prioritize projects that can protect a community from a disaster in the future. I think of it as really the foundation, where you can't build a house without a plan. You generally, pour a foundation for a house before you put on the walls or you put on the roof. The BRIC grant program was launched in 2020 and offered to states, local communities, tribal nations, and territories as they undertake hazard mitigation projects, reducing the risks they face from disasters and natural hazards. Our mission is to empower communities through partnerships and mitigation investments to advance natural hazards resilience. The vision is a nation of communities resilient to natural hazards. Thank you. This will be Sarah Bariluk.
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. We're here tonight to provide an update on the hazard mitigation plan development process. If you remember, I think I saw a lot of you in January when we were here kind of at the beginning of that process. We're now pretty close to the halfway point and wanted to provide a status update and another opportunity for any questions and feedback from you all as the plan moves forward. So we're currently in the final stages of finalizing the draft plan, and that draft plan will be available for public review and comment next week. So that's the full 120+ page document. It's quite a hefty one. And for the duration of public comment, we'll have a survey open with some questions for folks to provide any feedback on the draft plan. And we'll also just be generally accepting any comments, via email, via the survey, however it makes sense. After the public review and comment process, we will finalize that draft and then begin the submittal process. So we're targeting kind of like early summer for submitting the plan to the state and FEMA to begin that review process. So we're here tonight to talk about the work we've done since January and where the plan's at right now, and just to talk about some of the changes that we've made from the 2019 version. So this is a short summary of the engagement we've done while developing the draft plan. There was a survey that was available in February that we had some respondents to, and we also met with some other town departments that are not necessarily part of the planning team that's been meeting regularly, and some community and regional stakeholders to talk about their priorities for hazard mitigation. This is a short high-level summary of some of the feedback we saw in the survey. The line at the top here, probably not a huge surprise to the folks of this commission. Residents in Southbridge are fairly concerned about natural disasters happening and feel that the town isn't prepared for a natural disaster, which, you know, not a good thing to find, but also a good thing to find in the middle of a planning process for natural disaster mitigation and resilience. So this gives us a lens into how the community is feeling and, you know, what emphasis the community is placing on these topics. We evaluate around 10 or so hazards in the plan, and we asked community members to rank them by priority. And the hazards that residents said were the most impactful, so the ones that they experience the most in their day-to-day life, were snowstorms, thunderstorms, and extreme temperatures. But the hazards that residents said were most concerning were snowstorms, thunderstorms, and flooding. So I think that was a kind of an interesting finding, and probably speaks to both the history of flooding events and flooding risk in this town and how that's affected folks who have lived here for generations, and it's affected their family and their properties. And also how extreme temperatures are kind of a new hazard that people aren't thinking about. And that showed us that, you know, the plan needs to consider education and awareness strategies for heat waves, and ensuring that folks are thinking about those as the concerning events that they are becoming. There's 4 general categories of what the plan calls mitigation actions. That's local plans and regulations, structured infrastructure projects, nature-based solutions, and education and awareness strategies. And we asked residents to generally rank those by priority, and local plans and regulations were the highest priority type of action for folks, followed by structure and infrastructure projects. And in this second survey, during the public review phase, we're providing some examples within each of those categories and asking people to rank them further, just so that we can get an idea of what types of projects do people think are the most important for the town to pursue over the next 5 years. And then lastly, I think we had a list of like 15 different types of community assets and resources. And the top 3 most important that people ranked were utilities, critical facilities, and emergency services, which, you know, not a huge surprise there. Those are kind of the foundation of the community. And that is kind of how the 2019 plan was focusing on those topics. So it was a good confirmation that that focus in 2019 aligned with community priorities, and we'll continue to focus on that in the 2024 plan. Some of the feedback we received from the community stakeholders that we met with, I think the biggest thing I took away from those meetings was really strong support from these organizations and town departments for hazard mitigation, including interest in working with the planning department and the emergency management team on projects, which is a really great thing to see in a town where resources and capacity can be limited. We also saw, these are kind of the 4 big themes of concern from these stakeholders when we were talking about hazard mitigation. So the first one, keeping in mind, some of these organizations work at a much larger scale than just Southbridge. They're thinking about regional coordination and how all of the towns in this area are working together, especially for something like a dam failure scenario that's going to affect a large area. They're also thinking about climate change and how that's going to affect the area. And they're concerned also about the future of development in Southbridge and how that will put more populations and more infrastructure at risk. So when we're moving into the next slide, we are taking that feedback we got from the community and from those stakeholders. We're also taking the hazard analysis that my team worked on using the best available environmental data and information from Chief Normandin and the rest of the planning team about town infrastructure to guide the updates of the plan. So this is boiling down last like 3 months of work into one slide. There will be an executive summary as well as the full plan itself available for review next week. So if you have the interest and capacity to review even a portion of the plan, I would really recommend it and would love to hear your feedback and your thoughts on things that might be missing or things you liked in the plan. The biggest changes in the overall hazard analysis that's going through that list of 10 hazards and saying, how often does this happen? And how bad is it when it does happen? And where does it happen? The hazards that changed the most were extreme temperatures and flooding. And this reflects a lot of the conversation the community had during the municipal vulnerability preparedness workshops in 2022 about how climate change is changing natural hazard risk for the town. So we're seeing more severe and more frequent heat waves. We're also seeing more severe precipitation events, right? They're a lot more intense and they happen in a lot more concentrated way. And the way that's overlapping with town development patterns in the last few years is causing stormwater drainage issues and erosion risk in certain parts of town. And so when you add in aged stormwater infrastructure, that's just a perfect storm, no pun intended.
Is that the thunderstorm? It's all rain effect? Is the fear of thunderstorms, or that's the concern? Because a snowstorm, I can understand. Thunderstorms, I mean, people can be afraid of lightning, but the rain that they're worried about?
Thunderstorms also includes wind risk. So it's like thunderstorms and tornadoes,
Okay, that's what I wondered why that was.
Yeah.
It's-
to be missing.
So wind, heavy rain, surge rain.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of all of that wrapped up together.
Okay.
Yeah. It's flooding kind of, because there's different types of flooding, right? There's the river flooding versus stormwater flooding. It kind of cuts across different hazards, but both flooding and thunderstorms, I think, talk about the concern there about stormwater drainage, especially is the big theme. Yeah. And this middle line, stormwater inflow into the sanitary sewer system. So I haven't talked a ton about that, but that's the idea that the wastewater system is outdated and has its issues issues. And when there's a really heavy rain event, some of that rainwater is getting into the wastewater system, and that's creating treatment plant problems. That was something we talked about as well and saw concern from. So when we talk about what's changed from 2019 to 2024, a lot of the other hazards like earthquakes, drought, not a ton of changes in those areas. Southbridge is fairly resilient to those hazards compared to extreme temperatures, flooding, thunderstorms, where we're seeing some changing conditions from development patterns, climate change, aging infrastructure, things like that. And so that kind of gets to my next bullet point about development and redevelopment in the downtown area. So there's more language in the plan than there was in 2019 that just talks about the importance of redevelopment activities, but also making sure that investment in those parts of town are considering hazard risk exposure and the appropriate actions to protect those investments. This third line here, so co-benefits is kind of a weird technical term that might not make a lot of sense, but this is reflecting the idea that Southbridge as a town with sometimes limited resources and capacity needs to invest in projects that are going to provide the mitigation actions when this disaster happens, but also blue sky benefits, right? Talking improved roadways. The sanitary sewer is a good example of we need functioning sanitary sewers always, right? We need a functioning wastewater system every day of the year, not just when it's flooding. So we're emphasizing those recommendations that for immediate action and high priority actions that are going to have a lot of different benefits for the town in order to provide the best investment of the town's resources in the short term. We're also increasing the emphasis on integrating hazard mitigation with other town plans. So that's reflecting the community priority of local plans and regulations being the most important place to start. There were a lot of ideas in the 2019 plan or initial recommendations at a high level on how to integrate hazard mitigation into other plans. We're trying to focus those a bit more and get those more teeth and working with the team to make sure that those get implemented. And then the incorporation of climate change and future conditions. So for every hazard we evaluated, there is a separate section for each one that says, how will climate change affect this hazard specifically? So we're walking through that step by step to say, how in a climate change scenario is Southbridge's risk affected? And then the last big change we made was we refined the plan goals. So in 2019, the plan had a comprehensive goal, but it was vague, and that's what made it comprehensive. So this year, this update, we've refined that into these 5 different goals that cover the full breadth of priorities and give a lot more specificity to those goals. So the first one here, I think is fairly straightforward. A hazard mitigation plan needs to enhance the town's mitigation capabilities, with safety and resilience being the top priority. Thinking about that community feedback on critical facilities and emergency services, our second goal here is about protecting public buildings and ensuring that emergency services can continue to function during a disaster. So we're not, that critical buildings have backup power, for example, and the town can continue to serve the community, even during a power outage or a hurricane event. We're also building into the plan several recommendations around improving and increasing communication with the community and hoping and trying to get folks to better understand their natural hazard risk and more engaged in these topics. And then this fourth one here is that balancing protecting our existing infrastructure with investment in new areas and ensuring that new development projects, when they happen, are sustainable and forward thinking and are not just filling in space or trying to build stuff as quickly as possible. And then lastly, the plan has an explicit goal now for addressing climate change impacts and preparing the town for future hazards from climate change. So some next steps, just to recontextualize this in our process. I think the plan will be available for public review and comment on Monday. There'll be a survey available on civil space, as well as the full draft with the executive summary. I'll coordinate with Ken to make sure that information gets sent out to you all, so that you can see that and provide comments. This is, I think, the best opportunity for digging into the weeds and digging into this content, because after the public comment period, we are going to work to submit the plan for the state review. And that kicks off the whole review process with FEMA and all of that. We don't present to the town council for adoption until the end of that process, but once we're in that review process, it's I think a little bit trickier to get edits in that are not explicitly requested by the state and FEMA, because we have to document all of those edits. So we definitely want to take as much time as needed in this public review phase and immediately after to incorporate your feedback, if you have it. So we're currently targeting an adopted plan sometime this fall. That will depend on that review process and the comments we receive from the state and FEMA. And that is my last slide. I'd be happy to take any questions now or any feedback, anything on anything I just said that you're like, that's crazy, I don't like that, or you didn't talk about this at all, why not? Happy to take that kind of feedback. But like I said, that survey will be available next week, and we'll be accepting feedback over the next, I think, month. So there's no pressure. It's not the only opportunity you'll have to share comments with us.
Anybody have anything to say?
I just have one question.
Yeah, go for it.
I know that probably 25 or 30 years ago, the town did an extensive investigation of stormwater infiltration into the sewer system. And I'm just wondering if you guys got the records.
I don't think we have those
Yeah.
records.
I was gonna say the same thing. This town has been very proactive in mitigating any stormwater infiltration into the sewer systems.
Okay.
So there is, the sewer department would be one to contact.
Either Amy was in charge. So
Hamer was, exactly.
Except that we had a pipe burst at the AO a month ago.
that wasn't,
because stormwater got into the sewage system.
That wasn't stormwater, just so you know.
That wasn't
That
stormwater?
was not,
No, I can remember Hamer doing the
So-
smoke testing.
yeah.
Plumes of smoke coming up, roof of the 3 deckers.
That's interesting, because I was told that it was stormwater. Backing up.
But you want to storm that day.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that,
Flood.
that our sewer system is antiquated.
Yes.
And there would be grants possible
Yeah.
for that?
Yep.
How does climate change have anything to do with we need a new sewer system?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. The wastewater sewer system, so storm sewers, wastewater sewers are separate systems. I think you're talking about wastewater sewers. Yeah, cool. With climate change, we have more intense storm events with more rainfall. Massachusetts is part of the country that's going to get much wetter over time. That's more precipitation. And When you have an outdated wastewater sewer system, even if maybe some parts of it have been maintained, I think there have been some issues in recent years. The joints they're not good, right? Pipes are breaking, the joints aren't good, the catch basins or the manholes have structural issues, and that rainfall gets into the system. And the problem that the wastewater plant will eventually have is they're only built to handle a certain level of flow. And they're, I think, starting to see issues where the flow is reaching their max capacity or even exceeding it.
Wow.
And that's, yeah, so that's kind of what we're worried about. We don't want to have overflows, right? Those are really bad. So
Water finds
working
its
to
way.
protect the streams from overflows is the priority for sure.
The town of Southbridge has explicit records of dry event flow
Yeah.
versus wet event flow and inflow. It's not that they're totally have no inflow, but they have been working diligently for the last 20 years, because on this project of making sure we place in certain sections of sewerage pipes and so forth. So there would be a lot of data. I know there's a lot of data with the sewer department.
Cool. We'll definitely try to track that down. Thank you.
And it goes back quite a ways.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
back in the late 80s.
Probably that.
Any more questions?
I have a question. I have a lot of questions. I think probably the most important question, there are two.
Okay.
Looking at the concerns after you've spoken with our colleagues across the town.
Yeah.
And residents, I'm very interested in any ability to bury lines.
Okay.
And how if there's funding out there for that as a hazard mitigation. If we're looking at snowstorms and wind and we have our lines up as a planning board, one of the things that we can do, and I've seen this done in other towns that I've lived in, certainly in Denmark and Copenhagen, when I lived there, they were going through the process back in 2005 through 10 of burying all the lines. So I would be in a grid down situation, we're a lot more intact if we have our lines underground. And so there'll probably be energy usage corridors where we can see, obviously where I live up in the hills is not where most of the electricity is needed. But certainly in downtown, and I'm sure there are usage, maps where it makes sense potentially strategically to bury lines and protect them. Also, obviously funding for the highway department to keep the trees clear, things like that, so that when the storms do come, the trees aren't coming down on the lines, things like that. So that's my first question. My second question is, when are we going to see the actual action points? Like, so you said that there is going to be a short list essentially of strategic focus points that we as a town can focus on.
The draft plan will have the full list of all the potential
Okay.
actions.
Okay.
Yeah, it calls them mitigation actions. That's just the recommendation of projects and activities for the next 5 years.
Okay.
It's
Is there a budget assigned to that?
it's a very rough order magnitude budget.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not an actionable budget, more just a planning level budget. But that is something that is included. It also
Does it include grants that we can apply for that would match that particular concern?
it does include potential funding sources.
Excellent.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is addressed, and it includes prioritization, and that's the piece we're looking for feedback on, especially like we want the priorities that go into this plan to be priorities the community agrees with, right? We don't want this plan to reflect things that you say, this isn't important to us. So it does currently show prioritization, but I want to really make that clear. Like, that's definitely up for change. That's our recommendation based on the analysis we've done, but we want to hear from the community as well.
All right. There'll also be things, and we've talked about this a little bit, but things that don't cost money, like upstream wetlands conservation, restrictions on logging around those areas in order to prevent erosion, prevent flooding, maintain riverbanks, that kind of thing. So the things that don't cost money that we can be doing, like a list of those would be really great. And because those are bylaw changes that we can put into effect.
Yes.
And given our exposure with the 7 perennial streams coming into the Quinnebog, that's something that we can work on. I guess maybe conservation planning, some element of both of us, I think, would probably be needed for that.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious about those, like the ecosystem services stuff that we can get in place to protect the town and the town's infrastructure.
Yeah, there are a couple of recommendations already in there on exploring and evaluating bylaw changes on an ongoing basis.
Okay.
We have already we're trying to, because just a bit about this process, like every 5 years, you have to go back and review your whole table and say, this is what we did and didn't do to FEMA. And it's quite a tedious process, especially if the mitigation actions are overly too detailed, because then it's like, well, this one tiny detail means we didn't actually do this. So I think the line on bylaw changes is like, continue to evaluate bylaw changes that align with these priorities, including but not limited to like these topics, including preserving forest land and preserving agricultural land as well, I think is on the list.
Is there anywhere that we can go when you bring those things before us? Because that's what we do as a board, right? Like that's our pie that we can affect. Is there a place that we can go where we can see best case examples of best practices of other municipalities that have encountered this issue? Like I was just up touring Montpelier during the eclipse and seeing what happened to them this summer. And wow. And we're effectively a very similar town. And they were telling me that their drainage systems, like what their infrastructure that they had in place, once that flood happened, everything jumped like 150 feet. And so everything, they have to replace everything now because there are new courses literally created because it wasn't up to the job of handling that storm, which wasn't even as high as previous storms.
Right.
So I would love to hear best case practices and best case examples. If there's a place we can go to see that, that would be great, because then we can piggyback off of somebody else's work.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that's something that's currently in the plan. And I definitely want to make sure that we publish this draft for public review and start getting feedback, but that is something that I'm definitely going to look at and think about how we can incorporate that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
There was a great, I think, was it FEMA? Just recently we had a meeting and they were doing Charles River Alliance, I think Austin, Texas, and then San Francisco.
Okay.
And they were presenting ecosystem services
Mhm.
for all those different water basins and how they managed it. And so that was like a great example.
Yeah.
It's a water academy or something like that I attended. I don't know, I'll have to find it. But anyway, that was a great example of people that we could carry off of their work and we could put into place based on their practices already. So it's great that you give us instructions on what we should do, but if we don't have to rebuild the wheel, that would be even better. So if there's a database somewhere that would be pointed in that direction, that would be super helpful.
We'll definitely take a look at that. And this is, we're working on this plan process right now, but James and I are here supporting Southbridge through 2026. So this is not the last time we will be here. It's not the last thing we're working on. These are the types of resources we can continue to source and provide and help with.
One other thing, I want to say this was before 2010, I'm not 100% sure. And we had 10 straight days of rain, and we had some significant flooding. There should be some records out there as to what happened and where it happened.
Is that 2005?
Could be 2000.
Yeah, it was the big October, October
2005,
2005.
I remember the golf course had a major problem.
Yep.
And
but
also,
10 straight days of rain.
well, and also the
Those records
subdivision,
gotta be there somewhere.
not the subdivision.
Brookfield
the
Terrace.
house. Is that what it's called?
So-
Down by Big Y?
Yes, they were
Oh,
very
South
badly,
Village, yeah.
they were very badly affected, and the fire department actually rescued people out of their homes in the middle of the night.
That was-
2005, it was in October.
October.
I
It
think
was
it might
8
have,
inches of precipitation.
The apartment complex down there had a problem.
well, there's a confluence of Dean Brook,
Mhm.
the river, and is it Cohasset Brook or Lebanon Brook?
Cohasset and Lebanon.
It's Quinnebog and Dean.
They
At
come-
that
But there was a
corner.
third one. The third one comes behind that stone building.
Yeah, there was one that comes in right down Main Street, and that might be Cohasset and or whether it might be both of them.
Okay, well, anyway, that's where the real sensitive place is. And boy, oh boy, it did flood.
Lowlands.
But we were able, I live not too far from there. We were able to navigate to where we had to go when the road was closed through alternate routes, which was nice.
Mhm.
But anyway, did you say that you were going to come after we've had a chance to review it? Before the public hearing, that you're gonna come back to this board?
We
For
haven't
another
scheduled that
visit?
yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay,
we'll have to look at that. Yeah. At
And
this
this will
point,
be on the, excuse me, on the town's website?
yes, yeah, yeah. We'll be using I think the civil space tool. They've been used for other things as well, but I think the links will all be
But
posted on
that's
the
where we'll be
website as
able to
well.
look at the draft.
Yes, yeah, and the survey will be there as well.
Chief?
Good evening, everybody. I'm here supporting these guys. They've been done some yeoman's work for us to rewrite the hazard mitigation plan. So obviously, most of you know, I see a few new faces. I'm the fire chief. I'm the emergency management director. I run the ambulance service. As many people do in town, we wear multiple hats. So getting these guys on board to help rewrite this proposal is awesome. And then we've met with the things that you've talked about. Each one of those groups, we've talked about the 2005 flooding. And we got information saying that the culverts weren't completely cleaned out back then. DPW has now done a very aggressive job every couple times a year cleaning all those culverts to avoid those things. But I can go on forever because this is kind of like my passion. TJ Edwards is another one of my firefighters. So we are your EMD, emergency management directors. We basically, through the union, he runs and helps me do things and put things together. And we are really looking at above and beyond what we're talking about today. There are many other, and Pam brought it up, there are many other things that we can look at for grant possibilities, and these guys will help us write it, or another group of team will help us write it to push it forward. Wastewater is big, the sewer plant is very, very big. We did talk with DPW director several times, sewer department, and actually Viola, in regards to that conversation. We really have hit everybody, and I really thank you for your time. We are way over your time allotted that you gave us.
So, yeah.
We're fine.
This will be on the town's website for your review. With those comments, those other comments that you've already asked, even so, put them on there and just move on forward, and we'll get all these answers, questions answered. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for everything.
Thank you guys. Thank you for the time tonight, and we couldn't do this without your feedback and input. So this is very much a town product that
Absolutely.
should reflect your perspectives.
Look
It
forward
goes
to
along
getting
with
in there.
the 800 pages of the emergency center plan that we have. TJ did most of the work.
A little
We
light
wrote it-
reading.
We wrote it,
A
so.
little light reading, right?
Light reading, yeah.
I'll take-
The horns are on Band-Aid approach, and when the new fire station is built, they'll be done.
Okay, get that done then.
It's the money. I like the horns.
When we first moved in, I think it's Monday night, I don't know what night you have your meetings, but I thought it sounded like a water buffalo. When- I'm like, what is that mean?
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock.
Monday?
Oh.
Monday.
I'm like, what is that? It sounds like a dead water buffalo.
Just think of it this way, back
Like
15
school closing.
15 years ago, every time there was a fire alarm on that system, that horn blew.
That was the
blew,
one?
blew. Yeah,
That was
to a tune.
So we're not gonna have horns after,
So there are still sirens around town.
Around town now.
okay,
West Street, I think Easter Road, there's one on the station, but I
South Street.
are they
Sounds good.
functional?
do not know.
We should have something like that in
We need a
place.
grant.
I mean, living down.
Yeah, there you go.
Everybody that has one.
I have $1,000 worth of fire alarm money or fire prevention, things like that for municipal fire stuff. It doesn't go very far.
I mean, we live
Yeah.
down from a high risk with 5,000 people in the way mortality dam situation. Like if we need to tell everybody to get up and we don't have horns to blow, like air raid siren
It
type.
would be police cruisers and fire trucks on their PAs going up and down streets.
And reverse
Yeah.
911. Yes.
Cable, if it's still working, yeah, we have those alternates all in this plan.
Okay, well,
along with
that's
the
good.
plan.
I still want you to have horns
Great.
though.
Well, I lived my whole life right near a firehouse and it was very loud, but I knew when we had an emergency.
Yep.
So it didn't bother me. I just wondered what it was.
Used to be school closings too, didn't you used to blow it?
Yeah, it was in
School closing?
222, I think.
Yeah, 2222 was school closing. I remember that.
So thank you, everybody.
Great, thanks, Steve.
You guys are all set.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate the presentation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
We will
Thanks for all your work.
wait to see this appear on the town website
Yep.
and then there'll be space for feedback.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
If we want to speak with you directly, we should try and reach out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I hope we do the
Definitely
Riverside.
available for
Trans-
that if-
Trans-
Great.
If needed.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, they updated
Have a good night, you guys.
You too.
1411. Have you
I
got
didn't-
that?
yeah.
Is it? So it would be number 5.
Yes, we're going to go.
We're gonna do that next.
Yes, it's gonna be five.
You want me to go out and get them?
No, he's Don's right there.
Oh, okay.
Don's right there.
Don's right there. We know Don.
Okay.
Hello. So you want release of lots 12 and 13?
Yeah. Just for anyone who's not familiar with it, this is the plan. What's in yellow are all the houses that you've already approved.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do.
Where is River's Edge? Do we have a
off the-
map?
Down behind Big Bunny.
Off Wall Street. Near Big Bunny.
The road's down behind Big Bunny.
Do we have a topographical map with flood
be.
indications? Since
It's
called-
irrelevant. It's already a pre-approved subdivision. This is all irrelevant.
This is.
This is the subdivision that's approved.
We'll approve subdivision, we just release the lot.
Are you
So I
in
just
the
pulled out
corner?
the,
Oh.
Big Bunny is over here.
Are you clear? Are you?
If you need this, if you want to see.
No.
So this must have come through before I came.
Oh,
over.
yeah.
This came through years ago.
Subdivisions take a while.
2004, this is,
Sorry, I mean to chuckle.
No, no, it's,
What brook is?
I was there right along
I
with
can't.
you.
Goose Free Brook?
Yeah.
And so these are,
Pleasant Street.
All the yellow lots already got houses on them.
so this is the direction of the hill?
Yeah,
Like the
Yeah,
ground goes up
Yep.
in this
Right,
direction?
Sturbridge
Okay,
is here.
got it.
yeah, this is actually Sturbridge right here.
And everything in yellow already has a house?
Yeah.
Yep.
Why did we approve houses so close?
Because it's illegal and it's allowed by right, and we went through Conservation Commission.
And Conservation Commission approved it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all approved, yep.
When there were also heavy stormwater regulations
Yeah,
at the time.
DEP actually came in and appealed it and issued a superseding order of conditions on this.
Okay, so DEP was involved.
Oh, yeah.
So, what goes under the river again, under the brook? Was that the sewer system?
Water line.
Water line, okay.
Yeah, initially, in phase 1, in case we didn't go further, you had wanted a loop of the water line. And the only feasible way was across the river. But then we were
Now
able,
I remember.
now we were able to continue the project, and that line is cut off now.
Oh, good.
A little history, the water line was put in years ago before they had the 500-foot limit on the
Oh,
water
under the
line.
man named Walsh.
Yes, and so, but when the subdivision went in order to do for clarity and for the water quality, it was required to loop the water system. The only way to loop the water systems was to loop it back to, what's the name of the street? Plimpton. So what they did is they carried the water line across the dam. There was an old ice house, mill, dam down on there. So they carried the water line underneath the dam all the way, across to Plimpton Street and, looped the water system. So there's 2 access points to the water system to the subdivision.
That's good to hear.
Yep.
I had a question. Is there possible to see this development? Like, I mean, if these houses are already built, can we see on the Google Maps? Like,
Yeah.
can we pull it up? So. I'm just trying to orient myself toward this project. So you have two more single family houses you're ready to start on.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay. And you already have families in all the yellow ones?
Yeah.
Okay, and are there sidewalks here?
No,
we decided never that.
no, they were waived.
I
Sidewalks.
believe they're already thinking of us. Still in the plans.
I thought,
I think they're still in the plans.
Sidewalks on the, maybe on the inner loop. The road
On
going
the
on,
entrance, we waived them. I
on
thought,
the entrance that we waived them.
So here, there's no sidewalks.
Here, give me a plunge.
Yeah.
Number.
And it's on town sewer, I assume?
Yes.
What's the speed limit on this road? Curiosity. You know,
Private road.
it's a private road?
Well, yeah, it hasn't accepted.
Hasn't been accepted by the town yet.
Oh.
We're still building a subdivision.
Yeah, I'm trying to find.
What was this before you started building on it? What was the history of the parcel?
This is the third attempt at a subdivision.
Were two prior developers that didn't make it. So they had partial infrastructure in.
And then before that, what was this?
Woods.
I thought.
No, no.
the
Okay, so it
sidewalks
was a
were
hard,
on
I know
that.
that there was a lot of like,
Proposed sidewalk on the inner
Packard
circle.
stuff down
No,
there.
no,
like,
no.
history. Now
Yeah.
it's just
This
woods.
came in.
On one side.
Not down by the
Not by
road.
the whole tree.
No, they asked for a waiver
Yeah, the
and
second guy.
I remember talking, you were there when we talked last.
And it sat there for a long time,
Yeah,
long time.
Back here, I think.
didn't see them, Mike?
On the inner circle, just at the end on the inner circle,
So here,
on the inner circle.
on the
yeah.
inner circle, there's a sidewalk.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, why is there not a sidewalk
We
here?
waived it.
Do you wanna put one in anyway?
No,
You don't wanna have a sidewalk?
That was our request to waive it.
Why wouldn't you wanna provide pedestrian access?
because
There's.
Pam, we're asking questions that are
I know,
totally
I know. I'm
beyond what
curious.
he's asking for a release here. We're not re-approving a subdivision.
No, I understand that. I understand that. I'm just curious why you didn't have one in there.
Well, the discussion was that the sidewalks are sidewalks to nowhere. And
There's no sidewalks leading into there, down at the end of Wall Street,
So
all the
would
way
it-
out.
There's no sidewalks. in the
There's no
whole area.
sidewalks in the whole area.
I
None
think
of the
it would have
streets
been
have-
nice to have sidewalks, but I think it's also wise to remember that
The
they
town
are
would have to
very,
maintain it.
very expensive to put in sidewalks.
And
And in
the
this
town-
case,
Especially sidewalks.
it just would have been for the people who live there to be able to walk that distance. I would have liked it, but I agreed to the waiver.
DPW did not want to maintain them either, because that
Yeah.
strip through there, DPW.
So
would-
everybody has a low bar, so it just stays low. I
Yeah.
mean, this is my personal opinion, when you have density like that of families with children living near a downtown area,
But it-
even if there's nothing in the town, even
But
if there's no.
But
there
they
is
do-
no access to there, it's for that subdivision, it's not.
Right,
it's not-
exactly.
It's not a through road.
But
I
there
know, I
is-
understand that,
It's
but
the
there is
cul-de-sac.
a
They just walk
sidewalk
down to the
on the
road,
inner
turn around.
circle where most of the houses are.
on this inner circle right
Yes.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, but not out to the main road. Anyway, this is not about you. This is just an issue in general. I'm beginning to realize how, I
People
would like to see it in new
people aren't
developments.
gonna walk
frankly.
it anyway.
One of the things we also has, as part of this plan, is a walking trail in the back.
That's good.
There's
And
a complete loop.
there was a lot of things done with the intent of making sure it was a good neighborhood.
Mhm.
Have you gone to it?
I've never seen it before.
Go
I
to it.
didn't even know.
Go to it.
Certainly will.
I don't think you'll find the residents demanding sidewalks. In fact, I think they think they're very comfortable the way it is.
Mhm.
And as I say, they wouldn't be connected to anything. These were arguments made and heard, and some liked, some didn't. One apparently very vocally, but they
Mhm.
voted for it.
Well, I mean, there's nothing to be done now. it's a point of,
But I don't want you to think that
Question.
I'm some developer that comes in and I'm trying to urbanize this. This is a very, very beautiful neighborhood.
I'm sure it is.
Well,
I just expect sidewalks in new developments, so.
Maybe if you
but-
go see it, you won't disagree.
I'll certainly never disagree with sidewalks, but I think you've probably done a wonderful job. And I'm certainly happy that there's new houses going in.
Anything more going on around, do you think?
Watching like the bike lanes in Boston. no one
Just,
uses them.
getting the, we've got our materials there,
Mm-hmm.
so to move them all, and then, and we're gonna use them for the lots too, so it kind
Yeah.
of makes more sense.
Okay, so we have a request for.
Question is Don, there was on the last one, I thought there was, on the last releases, there's up until so many lots and then the finish coat has to be put on the base. There was some type of stipulations on that. I remember.
We had to increase the bond from 100,000 to 300,000.
Thousand.
And I was to initiate discussions with DPW, I guess. From what they've told me, it was a 4-step process. I've done the first step, which is initiated. And then I guess through the planner and DPW, they work with planning board to discuss finalization before it goes before the town council.
Yeah, there's usually a recommendation and then the.
Yeah, but I thought there was, we weren't gonna release any, you increased the bond amount so you could do this next phase.
Because I was,
Correct.
I was
Okay,
at
that's what it
100.
was. Yeah.
Cause I remember the discussion, but I don't
Yeah.
remember the business.
Yeah, I remember the bond amount was raised.
And you know, one of the things that came up in that flush of new subdivisions in the early 2000s, we rely on DPW to give us an estimate to help you with to help you develop your bond.
Sure.
So, you know, I think you read that they would work with us, but we don't have the capacity to come up with an estimate. It's DPW that does.
Right.
Part of it.
And I felt it only
And there's a
fair,
new DPW director, so
because the estimate that's in the file is 100 grand.
that's not gonna do it.
No.
I was the one who said to the board, it's not gonna do it.
Mm.
And that's why we agreed to the $300,000 figure, which frankly, with what's left and given we have no mortgage, I mean, we've been offered over $1 million for it that we're not taking because we're gonna make more. And so for us to walk away, I mean, it's not gonna happen, because if everything bad happened to us, we'd sell it,
Yeah,
but we're not gonna.
well, I'm glad things are working out.
Yeah, finally.
I know what you went through, what we all went through back then.
Anybody else?
Anything, anybody?
I'm all set.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to, the planning board release lots 12 and 13, Riverside subdivision for single family homes.
I'll second.
Motion a second, discussion. Hearing none, Sandy,
Yes,
Terry,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Dave, yes. You're all set.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So bless. You have a wave of millennials coming at you.
do you have? There is a form for that.
Yes, I know.
You did you find it?
I haven't seen
Is there
it.
something
Okay.
else?
This
Oh, they were
was an
together.
added agenda item that I didn't.
I might be able to help you find it, if you've got his records, because he had my records,
Well, you know.
you know, he told me
Still
that.
trying to figure out his record.
Oh dear, okay. It's a standard form, but just got some stuff that says Southbridge instead, and,
Yeah, okay.
but you'll find it in his file, you'll find all the ones from before.
Oh, network, in the network?
Huh?
Or in the,
In his
Paper copy?
paper file, which eventually should be
Let on that.
scanned in.
yeah.
It was a town flow. That got up into the AO's home. Yeah,
So
No.
Corey is not
So-
here.
yeah. The town main trunk line plugged. So what it did is it backed up, and it blew out the AO. It backed up into the AO on the river, and blew out the AO's lines that wasn't meant for pressurization.
Oh, we have
My
five.
God.
That's what happens.
So they could run.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Does everyone have a
no, I mean,
It's their flow.
Something, I thought-
It was their flow.
their flow.
Basically, the whole town got backed up into the American Optical. That's what happened.
That's insane.
Oh, yeah.
What happens when you're downstream?
Yeah. Should close down now.
You know what I mean?
Okay, guys, let's kind of hold it. So let's look at our notice of decision, 4050. This is our,
So, yeah, so, if I may.
yeah, please.
So, the decision that you
Wheels.
had, you had received at the previous meeting, was, there were some conversation that talked about some more recent changes that were reflected in this decision that went to the applicant. So with that said, you also, at the last meeting, saw the comments from the town attorney. There were some minor changes that, in addition to the findings that Sandy had proposed, and some rewording of of 17B2, which Mike had proposed. We later shared this document with the applicant's attorney and the applicant's team. And they have provided the comments as suggested in the comments on the side, as well as some strike through underlying changes present within the document. Mr. Freeman is here, as well as their traffic consultant, VHB. I know that Chip Norton is in the building. He is for the P&D subcommittee this evening, but I'm presuming that he will join after that. But
Okay, so we're gonna go through this.
So this is, so the first one that there's a change is condition 4. Where we thought 60 days, 30 days.
30, fine.
It's fine with me.
Number 4, the blue line. Or, fine with me.
Me too.
See, 30 days, 30 days. 5
So
is-
then that
5
changes
is 30 days,
automatically.
yeah,
6 or 7.
7.
7, I got a question on that. The comment says this has already been done successfully. DPW cannot and will not
Snake
Snake.
for a video.
for a video. The DPW doesn't do the work. It's a third-party consultant that does the work in the presence of DPW as a witness, is what the intent is. On that.
Who-
Chairman? Mr.
No.
Chairman,
Yeah, oh,
I thought we were closed.
no,
No.
not when we do something like this. Yes,
yeah, thank you for the record, Miss Peter Freeman. Chip could explain better. I'm sorry he's not with us at this moment, but this is simply meant to be factual. Chip did tell me that the DPW said that it is a dye test that they do and they follow the dye, but that they can't put the camera, on a snake for such long distances. So I'm stating this, as I say, hearsay, as we would say in court, I acknowledge, but that's what Chip told me. So we're just trying to be practical to allow something that to not require something that the DPW said they cannot do.
The DPW doesn't do it. It's a third-party consultant that does
No,
it.
I understand, but they said that whoever does it can't do it because of the issue with snaking for so long.
The DPW would have to tell us that directly.
Again, I'm just reporting what I've been told.
I mean,
I mean, because my whole point is just to try to make it more practical. Changing it to dye test, pressure test isn't the right term, I don't think, but that's up to you guys. But if you want to say and video inspected, if possible, or something that leaves it to whoever does that, I wouldn't object to that.
The pressure test is the right term because all new sewer lines in town are required to be pressurized if they're put in for new sewer lines, and old sewer lines are also looked at to be pressure tested as well.
Okay, you certainly sound more expert than I am. Again, I feel a little awkward, I acknowledge, because I absolutely am not trying to represent something of my own knowledge. But if you can keep your language, I just would, just ask that if you say, if possible, or as required, by town DPW or their third-party testing company.
Yeah, because you have some gravity lines and you have some pressure pump lines, pump lines. So the pump lines would be pressure tested. to verify, and the gravity lines, yes, you have dye test, that works on that, because with inflow, you don't know where all your, on a new construction, they're all capped, all the laterals are capped. Anything coming in from different buildings would not be capped, so it would be a dye test, but any pressure lines would be, pressurized, but the camera, I mean, I've gone up to 1,000 feet on with a camera, line.
Yep, again, I in no way would try to counter that, because I don't have any of this of my own knowledge. So the only thing I would ask, just to, let you move on, is say, as may be required by sewer department.
We'll just table
I'm
it.
not gonna leave it, I'm not gonna leave it up to the sewer department.
No,
Let's wait till Skip can come.
Yeah, we could maybe
We'll
talk.
table it until
Table
Skip
Skip.
comes down.
Yeah,
10,
Chip, sorry.
what are these blue lines? Who put these blue lines in here?
Those were the request of the applicant.
The request of the applicant, okay.
ten is essentially as it had been, which had at the end, but in no way shall it impact the issuance of certificates of occupancy. The only thing I added really was the applicant will file the appropriate permit modification request if necessary.
Well, it's already conditional with if issues are found, so you don't need to put in another conditional. The
I'll buy
beginning-
that. I'll buy that. I know it's redundant. I can accept that.
I think it's correct to say the issuance of certificates rather than any, because any is very kind of
Yeah, I like
too
big.
broad.
Yeah, that was just a clarification.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the substance.
It's just sort of
Just
language,
clarifies, and that's good.
sort of language thing.
Okay.
I have no problem with 11, because knowing if it supports the town's largest, fire truck and apparatus, it's gonna support any other vehicle.
Including a big 18-wheeler.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine. Check that off.
Wait a minute, how does that read? The bridge structure shall be evaluated for the capacity to support the town of Southbridge largest, okay, I see, all right, I got it now.
yes, next
That sounds
one's
fine.
that one's
Yeah,
two,
I
because
agree.
the applicant's gonna,
it's just wording, yeah.
the engineer's gonna say when it's gonna be done. At least every 5 years.
And also the 14, it's, I think that's clarifying.
Yeah, it's clarification.
I agree with that one.
Can I ask a question on that?
Which one?
11, the last sentence or the last paragraph on 11,
Yeah.
schedule for routine inspections. So the inspections, as specified by the applicant's reporting structural engineer, but at least every 5 years, shall also be furnished to the town of Southbridge DPW director in writing
Wow,
rather than a verbal meeting. No, because they were doing bridge inspections and they didn't do written reports. So I think we need to have it in. We need to specify
believe
it in
me,
writing.
there's no structural engineer that will not do a verbal report.
But
There-
they
there's-
have a
There's
structural
written
engineer?
reports.
Well, yeah, I know. But my point is, I think we need to be specific here. I think we need to say in writing. I would request humbly. that
Written
we-
report, just change the written report.
Yeah, written
To a written
report.
report.
Okay, and then it says, and is required, okay, so that's in addition to, so every 5 years, every 5 years, they're
Or at
going to
least.
share, at least every 5 years, they're gonna share a written report with the DPW director and planning board. There's no requirement of them to do anything, say the bridge is structurally unsound or something. There's no requirement for them to do anything about it.
There is, but I mean, it's gonna.
Well, where
be-
does it come
it's
from?
The emergency services or DPW or something like that. I mean, it's.
Building inspector.
If comes an issue on it. I mean,
Remember,
the only one that's gonna determine if it's unsafe is gonna be a structural engineer.
But once they say, just as totally hypothetical, if they determine that it's structurally unsafe. the property owner, be it Chip or whoever comes after him, they would not be obliged, according to the way that I read this, to actually do anything other than just submit the report. There's no requirement for action. Where does because this is a grandfathered, privately owned bridge.
If it goes and it's a safety issue, the fire and police department have public safety issues to shut that down.
They do,
On private
even on a
prop-
private property.
They have the right to do that.
Okay, I mean, as long as I didn't know how that worked because,
Yeah.
you know, it's a private parcel.
If it's anything that's gonna affect life safety,
Okay, good, thank you, Mike.
So where should this share report be? Schedule the inspections. Specified. Should share, shall share.
5 years shall also be furnished. I said a written I would just put, instead of shall also, I would just put a period right after 5 years and then put a written report shall be
Be
furnished.
submitted,
or
yeah.
Shall be,
Okay,
shall be submitted to the town.
yeah, got it. So it's gonna be a period after that.
Yeah.
All right. 14.
Clarification.
Yeah,
50. 60.
All existing dams on site shall be inspected and maintained in accordance with common.
One above 60.
Right.
16.
I guess I'm just asking, I see 15 as dams, where's the levy addressed? Because we had talked about maintaining the levy. Where is that in this list of conditions?
The levy can. Damn, I don't know. There's no,
We had it in previous,
If I, just to help, I hope Chip can come to verify, but you're right as to the discussion about levies. I think it's okay if you just add all existing levies / dams, cover everything. I'm not sure of the technical terminology, but I certainly agree with you that levy is what was discussed.
okay, but Massachusetts dam safety regulations don't cover levees, they cover dams and dikes. So it wouldn't be relevant, so it has to be specified where the oversight comes from. We said, according to all state and federal regulations. I remember specifically having this conversation, and I don't
Yeah,
see it all of a sudden, it's gone.
it's never been in a condition.
No, we've been talking about it, and I'm gonna
But
find
what-
it. We have been talking about it. We talked about the levy.
so why can't we say then all
We
existing?
can, so the thing is, the attorney did want to strike that language. That's the thing, so I did strike it, but if you want to
Oh.
include it, you
How
can.
could you Ken,
The attorney wanted to strike it.
Ken,
No, I
Right.
didn't strike anything on 15. Ken, we didn't talk about 15.
not you, the town lawyer. The town lawyer said to strike it?
She said, I don't have, it was
See-
what I submitted to the board last week with the comments from the attorney.
No, we can't just strike it. I mean, that's a
You
piece
know,
of
I don't think I brought mine with me.
infrastructure.
Well, it didn't say anything about the levies. It was regarding all the other federal and state permits.
So that's where it was.
That
but-
was but if there was levy language in there,
It would
she
be,
decided to strike it.
But why can't we say all existing dams
But-
and levies?
But I
it's
think
oversight, it's
what Pam is trying to identify is the oversight of the levies.
correct.
So if the language that the attorneys decided to suggested to strike, which was a language that said something about state and local
State and federal,
federal
yeah.
permits.
Because it's FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers who are creating legislation currently on oversight for private levies.
Okay,
It's not the Office of Dam Safety Regulations, which is in Massachusetts. And they literally came out, looked at the property and said, that's not a dike. We don't have, that's a levy and we don't have oversight on levies.
I remember that. So should we just create A second sentence?
But
something,
wait a minute,
yeah.
why was it, why was it stricken? Why does
yeah,
our,
I'm trying to.
Pulling
there's
it.
gotta be a reason.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Why
Mike.
are we assuming we have oversight? Why are we assuming we have the authority?
Why are you asking that question?
Because you basically, you're talking about putting something into an order of conditions that an attorney who knows about it has already said to strike it. And what I'm wondering is whether or not
We have the right
we
to.
have the right to do that.
So when you look at usage of a parcel. So do you want me to explain it to you, or do you just wanna make a point?
I've been doing it for a while.
So you just wanna make a point?
Yeah, I'm just asking the question, why are we
No,
assuming,
it's not a question, you're making a point, because I was gonna answer you.
why are we assuming we have authority?
We don't have authority as a planning board to oversee levees or dams or electrical grids. The power lies within other state and federal regulation bodies.
Here comes Jim.
So,
Levees have regulations.
so.
All flood structures do.
Okay,
Here comes
The
Jim.
language that was stricken, was all required federal, state, and local permits shall be received prior to issuance of building permits.
Yeah.
And Amy Questle, who was the town attorney, said, this is controlled by federal and state regulations. I suggest deleting this.
Correct.
So part of the challenge is that there was a study done in 1999 by the applicant, and they were following guidelines recommended by that 1999 study. However, regulations have changed since 1999. And so, for example, you're not allowed to have trees or anything over 4 inches growing on earthen floodworks, whether it be bordering a dam or be a levee or a dike or so on. You need to keep it under, so under 4 inches. So,
Pam,
yeah,
is number 13 clarify that?
number 13.
there you go.
What was the levy, number 13?
It's there.
So it's a separate point.
Yeah.
And she didn't strike it. So the lawyer didn't strike it.
She didn't strike that. She struck the language that was specific
That we
to
added there.
that.
Yeah.
But the board originally had all required federal, state, and local permits shall be received prior to issuance of building permits.
And I could see why she did that, because it's
Agreed.
Okay, so 13 is there.
not really our.
So the lawyer didn't strike it, so it stands. And it's just a matter of coverage and who's responsible. And dams and dikes aren't levees. So we needed oversight to create oversight in a different way. And also, how do you do it? Like, where do you go for the resources to understand how to maintain it? So that's why it's totally a different type of structure.
16 was okay for them.
16, it says consistency with the approved plans. I think that's fine.
Agreed.
Now comes a big one.
Now we come to our business.
You made it just in time, Jeff.
Oh.
Sorry.
No,
Come on and sit.
No,
on the
Why-
top.
No, what?
So,
you want a chair?
Why don't we
with
just
William,
go
or
back?
where-
Lovely 17B2.
Did you guys Chip about the DPW?
Yeah,
Well,
let's go back to 7.
So, oh, you want to go back to 7? Sure, Chip. That was what you would explain to me, Chip, about the testing of the sewer lines with the sewer department. And I don't have the technical knowledge. I think Michael certainly stated
We're on
things.
7.
Yeah. So
Whether
you,
we pressure test the line for the sewer.
Yeah. You want to switch with me?
Let's see. He just doesn't. He just came late to the party.
Can you bring my glasses in?
you wanna use mine?
I'm fine, actually. Actually, I should take it, then you won't be able to read it.
You've been here a couple of times.
Wow. All right, so it says 7 was the existing sewer lines connecting 40 and 50 optical drive with the public sewer lines located in the public way shall be, we had pressure tested and video inspected, and your recommended change was shall be dye tested with the town of Southbridge sewer personnel present. The question is on that. You have some pressurized pump lines, some pressure systems. You can't dye test a pressurized system. They have to be pressure tested.
Well, we just completed a testing with DPW on the line you're talking about.
The
And
one, the pressure line?
And they recommended a dye test, and the dye test was done. So I'm not an engineer. I'm just following what was done and what we were told they wanted done.
On the gravity lines that are through there, they're the ones that should be video.
Or die.
Video tested, because the dye test, if the dye doesn't come out of the ground, gets stuck in the ground, you're never gonna know there's an issue there, because the dye test would be more so under the river, if there's anything underneath the river or any lines like that, but if it's in the pressure test and it's just going into gravel and stuff like that, 25 feet, 30 feet from the river, there's no way of knowing. If there's roots that are growing in and from the lines into the older lines, it could be in a joint or a joint's cracked or
You know what,
something like
I'm
that.
fine. Because we're not gonna end up using it anyway, so I'm fine.
Okay, so I mean,
You
I
understand we're not gonna be using this line at the end of the day. We're tying into the main.
you are gonna ever since.
Yeah, that's already, since the last hearing, we're already in the process of engineering that with DPW right now.
Is that
do
partly
it.
because of the blowout underneath
Yeah.
the river?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, exactly.
okay, so,
So if
But
you
the-
wanna,
but-
you
but
wanna
the
keep the
other-
pressure tested, I'm fine.
but the other the gravity lines is your other buildings all tie in with laterals. They're not all pressure lines.
Yeah, so
So that's
you're
more
talking about the main line, testing the main line here.
the main line, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, but the main line is. You've got a gravity line. And then you've got the pressure line that's gonna tie in.
Yeah, you got me. I mean, I have no
Yeah.
idea. So whatever language you want that
No, and
satisfies the
I
technical.
know what, maybe we just add right this,
Fine
that
by
the
me.
public way shall be, pressure tested, video inspected. As required with the town of the Southbridge Sewer Department.
Fine.
Personnel. Maybe we just do that. Because know what? There's a multiple lines. It's got I know there's a pressure system, that has to be pressure tested. A gravity system, yeah, you can use a dye test, but that's usually done and to determine if the dye comes out in like the water. It's gotta come out somewhere. It's not just gonna come out through the ground. But the visual inspection line, they're gonna just run a camera between manholes, look in the laterals and look for a crack or something, or any obstruction. I mean.
So we're right.
Or water infiltration, because you know what, that's what FEMA was just looking at, that if they go in there and they see one of the joints and there's groundwater infiltration, then there might be an area that they might have to repair it, because all that infiltration water goes right to the sewer plant.
Exactly.
So I think it should be,
We're back to pressure and video inspection.
I think so,
Yeah.
All right.
And
Okay.
I'm fine with that language you said, adding as required by sewer department, Chip, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay, so that is what it is.
Okay. 17 was looked at. And it was a combination, the traffic study was looked at with the existing conditions. I don't recall. And there's many by right industrial buildings that are non-occupied in your complex. The reason that was put in is to look at any change in traffic flows, say. The old AO safety building. You got 250, a company came in and had 250, 300 employees. That number of employees was not reflected in the traffic study, in the traffic analysis. So that's why, yes, we're approving under these conditions. Because all this is on one property, they're different parcels, but it's all one property. Different projects within the property, that the conditions might come down the road where that 300 additional employees are what's causing a traffic concern. So at that point, but there's no planning board approval or special permit approval to regulate any
Expansion.
of the by right uses. So this was, we're looking here and the housing is a special permit use. So if your by right uses get added into the special permit use,
Then we have a problem.
we have got a problem. If you had the employees now and we were looking at this as a traffic study, okay, the use and so forth, and it added to the industrial uses, it probably would show that there would be a mitigation measure or some type of mitigation that would be required. So it's more so the way it was written is to look back at the analysis if a case came to be that the cause of the change was from
The whole.
a use on your property, then you would be on the hook to take care of that. That was the intent of that.
Not that
Mr. Chairman, so the concern is, and I understand what you're saying, but two things, and I could be wrong about the first thing. Greg Russell, if you're here and listening, you can give a technical response, but there is projected growth. It may not have specified a particular building in the AO complex, but the traffic impact analysis takes into account projected growth. But more importantly, the problem with it is simply that it makes this project unfinanceable. It'll never get built because a lender or investors or even Chip himself is going to say, wait a second, I have a permit. It's really good. And I appreciate all of the review tonight. The conditions are well thought out and they're good. So it's a good permit. But down the road, 2 or 3 years after whatever the time is that it's supposed to be subject to a further study, my permit could be yanked because I may not, they may not like what the proposed mitigation is at that time. It just keeps it so open-ended that it effectively has the serious negative potential of invalidating the permit, and no lender is going to live with that.
Understood.
Greg Russell. So just so we're on the same page with the growth and the traffic study, so we did put in we put in a general growth to accommodate 1% per year accumulated over a 7-year period. And then we also did add specific growth for this site for the one of the building that's currently advertised for lease now, 195,000 square feet of industrial space. So we did account for that in the traffic study and added that to the site driveways based on, how we had distributed everything previously. That was part of the study that was reviewed by VAI.
How many vehicles or do you know off?
Yeah, what are the numbers?
Yeah, I
don't recall a number that popped out at me when I read it.
Hold on something.
You see what we're trying to get at.
Yeah, but you understand our position.
I do.
Can we,
You can't
can we word it some way?
You can't blindly obligate me to something down the road. It just can't happen.
I think, Greg can probably find those figures, but I think I just happen to have been right. So the growth that you're concerned about seems to be already taken care of, both in terms of the general growth that these traffic engineers project, as well as specifically one very large building. So I think that, again, the concern we understand, but I think that it's actually been addressed already in the traffic study, as Greg just said.
I understand your point. I, like several other members, I'd like some numbers. Like I'm not good with math. When you're giving me all these percentages and over 7 years, I'm like, come on, I teach English, not math. So if you could please help us out.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at, like, for instance, the intersection of North Street and Optical Drive, not including the buildings that we're talking about being developed. We added in a total of 120 trips to that intersection during 1 hour.
So that's current.
Huh?
That's current use?
No.
That's the permitted use for the buildings that have already been permitted, not you know,
Not
aside
40
from
and 50, right?
not 45 and 50,
So excluding 40 and 50,
excluding 40 and 50.
with the buildings that are permitted already.
The buildings that are permitted already, as well as the one that is currently advertised for lease, which would be an as-right.
45 optical.
And then that also includes your historic growth rate that was added on top of that. So, and what I do want to point out, it's like when we took counts, I believe from 2018, the last time, we took new counts in 2023, the 2018 counts were higher. So we're being conservative here in how we're trying to be conservative. That was kind of how BAI reviewed it. There's no way to know what exactly is going to go in any of those buildings. But this is
195,000 square feet to do 100 more vehicle trips for the rest of the.
Well, that was just that one particular.
You've got other vacant buildings on that site also. I mean, I think that we're approving something in the way the board's looking at it. You're approving something for 40 and 50 that has so many projected vehicle trips. There's no dispute there, but it's a skewed number because you have these larger areas. So yes, you have the projection in there for 100 more vehicle trips. If you got someone that brings in 300 employees that are coming in and out, that is going to change the impact of that intersection. And you know what? If that 300 some of the employees were in there right now, you would be doing these modifications to the intersection to get the special permit.
Well, Greg, just going back to the numbers that you used.
Yep.
Assuming now you know 40 and 50 number of units. Let's assume on 35 optical, it's the same employment than when Arrow was there. Can't imagine they'll employ any more than 220 people, which is what was employed at that full capacity at that building. That's it. Those are the 3 remaining empty buildings. The last one's 70 optical, which is 15,000 feet. So I would think it's pretty easy for Greg to say, yeah, that those trips per hour are consistent with a complete development of the project, right? I mean,
That's
there's no mystery.
Yeah, but
even if it's a little more conservative, even if we do it a little more conservatively, we should be able to know.
It's your peak hour, and your peak hour, your peak in and your peak out is it's not an average. So your peak hour, if you're letting within the hour, you're letting 250 vehicle trips out of that site. That's a lot more than 100.
Well, I guess the question really, what mitigation are we looking for? Because
That's a great question.
it's like because like for instance, right now, with the volumes that are out there, like the proposed volumes, the future volumes, with all this, the volumes on Mechanic Street, like for instance, don't meet the requirements for an always stop sign. So there's just not enough traffic. So it's I guess so the question really is, it's like, we can do a traffic study, we can find out what the issues are. But if we're trying to aim for a particular mitigation, I don't because that's what it feels like. So
yeah, and the problem again.
And it's a challenge. And I've taken your plans to Traffic Commission to get their input, because of course, as planning board, this is not our wheelhouse. I understand that the traffic study at 90% occupancy, that's not a problem for you, right? The study itself isn't a problem. It's having an open-ended potential financial burden to change the intersection. You don't know what that amount would be, and so that's the problem in terms of the financing of the project.
Absolutely.
If anybody would finance the project, the zoning opinion, what writes the zoning opinion is don't want certainty in Meeting the, or the,
Special
Yes,
permit.
yes.
they don't
Except-
want-
Yes.
Exactly.
They're
Plus,
gonna-
it's really no different, legally than if there's other area potential future development, and it might be beyond the 1% growth factor per year, but it's really no different. The solution should be, if there's a concern like that, that the town, could have had requirements about review by a planning board, for changes in use, things like that. But we're dealing with what the situation is now. And again, it's really no different than any other situation where the projections have been made conservatively, taking into account all of this information. And if you just can't keep it open-ended, wondering about what might be in the future, because that's no different really than any permitting situation where you have specifics, which is our 40/50 optical housing development.
Would it be helpful maybe to go back to our traffic commission, because they're the ones who have the concerns. This is the DPW and the police.
Well,
Hey, Red,
And
I mean,
report.
we're discussing tonight nothing that's new because the hearing is closed. Greg is simply reading back to his study, so there's nothing new. Any discussions post the closing of the permit with the traffic commission really just legal viewpoint can't come into play, and we certainly don't want to, reopen the hearing.
I want to make sure that you have everything that you need so that you can get your financing and not have to worry. And I'm just trying to understand where the middle ground is so that we can give you that certainty while also understanding the position of the DPW director and the police chief's concerns about increased volume flow. So, and I'm hearing what you're saying about the conservative numbers on the estimates according, and Chip, your point about these buildings being filled. So it sounds to me, and Mike, will you correct me if I'm wrong? It sounds to me like what Greg is saying is that the numbers that they used incorporated the growth rate. But
I don't think it incorporated peak traffic flows.
Which would be which is a
For the
nebulous
number
number.
for
we don't-
250
but,
people,
I was just trying to find my overlay zone part of the bylaw, and I don't have it with me. But my question is, for any of the buildings that you still are looking to develop, would any of those not require a special permit?
Yes,
Okay,
by right.
but they
It's
would.
the old AO safety, you could go in there by right if it's an industrial
Right,
type
okay,
use.
okay, but that would be a plan approval? No, not even a plan
No.
approval?
No,
So then the
because-
real thing is that any project that doesn't require a special permit is a scary thing to us.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of my concern, is that it's trying to apply something that doesn't exist under the current zoning. But also, just for your review, I did print in there what had been discussed at the last meeting when we were there, that there would be that study of crash changes, patterns, and then recommendations would be made, and the town could consider implementing on its own if they deemed it necessary or appropriate. So we're not balking at doing that type of a study, but not to be redundant, but
Doesn't want to pay for it if they deem it appropriate.
The records are all with the police department.
What was that?
The records are all with the police department, this question of going through the records,
which
Yeah.
records?
crack records.
yeah,
Crack records are all.
but
We've already looked at that.
I did it with somebody else years ago. No.
Right, I guess what I'm saying is when they like Greg, they incorporated those numbers into their study.
Did a traffic study.
And so we've had that included, which is helpful, and none of us are arguing past crash rates. I think the concern is the increase.
Well,
Yeah.
we don't know what the increase would be.
Yeah, we just don't
And
know.
that's the
But
whole
we know
thing.
there will be an increase if there's an increase in traffic.
Correct.
No, you don't know.
But right, that's the unknown.
Yeah,
That's like a boogeyman.
But the lender wants certainty.
right?
Right, I mean.
There are no certainties when there's uncertainties.
Well, from a zoning perspective, I don't want certain.
Right, right.
And they go through the special permit with a fine tooth comb. Cause it's their money and they don't want it,
Step in a loophole.
yeah. I mean, it's, we get calls here.
Well, we are put in place to represent the best interests of the town of Southbridge, and the applicant has come forward with an exciting project, and our job is to take into consideration the town of Southbridge and see if it marries with what the applicant is suggesting. So we do have to be careful, especially when our transportation commission is asking us to be. We need
Yeah,
to.
but that should have been part of the hearing itself. Chip, do you have your phone? Can you look at your phone?
Yeah,
And they did, to be fair, they did give feedback. It just isn't what you want to hear. So now we're in the middle.
No, there is a process that's required. It's important. It's not that we don't want to hear it. It's just that it's not part of the record.
Yeah, yeah.
And I gotta tell you, I gotta agree with the financing part of it, because I've been through a lot of these. I've been a lot of, a zoning analysis would flag this right away. But there's gotta be a way of wording this in a way that would be for the financing, that it doesn't affect the financing of 40 or 50 optical, because chances are the traffic impact's not gonna be from 40 or 50 optical, it's gonna be from other parcels on your site.
But this special permit is for 40.
I
Right,
agree, but it's a-
right. But so I have an idea, which is what I texted Chip, and along the lines of what you just said. We could, Chip, you'd have to think about it now, but we could suggest a monetary limit for mitigation that might be required. That, because one of the concerns is the town probably wouldn't want to pay for it. So if Chip can agree to some monetary limit, but also say, which speaks to what you said, it's not going to mess up the financing of 40/50 optical. If we also say that, any findings and need for future mitigation does not invalidate this existing permit for 40/50 optical.
That's where I was going with that, the same thing, because I've seen that in other.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a meeting of the minds, because again, we respect your concern, but you also understand our real legitimate, issue of not being able to build this thing because of that. But so if you add language to that effect, and Chip, if you can come up with a dollar amount, I did ask you first if I could propose that. Thank God for cell phones. But yeah, I think that's a good solution.
Greg, what's the largest exposure mitigation? Stop a light system?
Traffic light.
Traffic
So
light?
the traffic signal would be the biggest one in this particular instance. And that's, you're talking over $200,000.
One traffic light.
It's more than one traffic light.
Yeah, you're talking thing, it's signalizing and timing.
All
everything.
time.
All right, I'll contribute 100,000, 50%. Cap it at that.
Thank you, Chip, for working with us.
Because remember, this is all hypothetical.
It's all hypothetical. I mean, the
No,
thing
I
is,
appreciate.
the
that
study's
you're
in
working
it,
with us.
within 90% occupancy. If you get this thing built, see, don't forget, you got to go through financing and everything else. This thing might not get built for 6 years, 5 years.
I don't know.
He's hoping.
You're
He's like,
hoping.
I'm gonna live to
I know
see it.
you're hoping.
How old I am? I do not live that long.
Look how long
Jesus Christ.
everything else is taking.
I have a goal to get the hell out of here before I pass away.
But you
Please,
look
help
at
me.
you look at how long everything
I
else.
don't know, GoFundMe page that says that.
But I'm saying that theoretically, it could be 5 years, okay?
Yes.
A lot could change with the other building. That's where the mindset was, and that could affect this. I think it's a reasonable,
I like the solution right now.
it's a reasonable solution. I think if we put the wording in there. And
50%.
I think if we could,
No cap.
yeah.
There's a cap.
Cap,
$100,000.
It can't be limitless, no.
no, cap 50%.
No.
No, that's not what he said.
No.
Because
$100,000.
it could be $250,
I guess here's my question, because of course you realize why I'm
I
saying
thought you
that.
just said that was a great thing I just did.
No, no, no.
You
No,
can't
my
help,
point is-
you can't help yourself.
Before she thought you were gonna take the bucket.
it's inflation,
I-
you know,
I-
it, 100,000 might not stretch as far
Well,
6-7 years from now.
remember this hypothetical.
But know what?
Yeah.
You gotta-
But that also poses the same issue for a lender. Well, it's
They're all gonna
100,000.
go
I can,
eat lunch and do everything in the town here, and it's gonna
Yes.
create economic
Exactly right.
Yes.
conditions. So it's an
Yes.
offset. It's an offset. I think it's a reasonable
It's
offer,
very reasonable.
And just change the language.
the language, if the wording for the language, you can, your attorney, Mr. Freeman, can you, not to affect the financing? The wording for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes, basically, if you keep in what you have, which I'm trying to read it squinting because I struck it through, but I assume you're still wanting to keep that there shall be an amended special permit application, but that still bothers me because what is the impact? I mean, I think it has to say that a list of recommendations shall be provided to the planning board. And the applicant has agreed to fund no more than $100,000 for any mitigation that may be implemented, and then add, in no way shall this condition invalidate this special permit.
That's where it
I
sounds, that sounds good.
I totally agree with that, and I could see why. I could take out the amended special permit because that it's an agreement under a condition, but it doesn't affect the special permit when it goes through a zoning analysis and taking out the amended special permit, because as soon as you go and you say you're gonna open up the hearing again for an amendment, that's what freaks out the attorney.
That's right. That's right. I mean, my opinion would have to say, my opinion would have to say, well, there's a permit, but there may not be a permit in 3 years. So, yeah.
Right, correct.
But if you agree with my language, I appreciate that.
Get that?
Can you get that?
Okay. Well,
Attorney Freeman will read it back.
Before we move on, I just have
Yeah.
one question.
Can you
Well,
read
wait-
that back?
So, let me just make sure that the first part of B2 is okay. A review of the intersection of Mechanic Street and Optical Drive / North Street and the intersection of K Street and East Main Street to determine if there have been any changes in the pre-development traffic conditions. That's okay. A list of recommendations, if any, shall be provided to the planning board if any changes in traffic conditions are attributable to use of Southbridge Assessors Map 23, Block 005. Now, is that the entire huge
That's the
locus?
005 is the entire section, and then they have 005-40-50 it's broken up into that section. But 005 is that block of the assessors maps.
Okay, so then, it speaks to what you said. So given the change, I'm okay with it. So we would stop there. We would have a period after block 005, all lots inclusive, period. If any suggested mitigation is implemented by the town, the applicant agrees to contribute no more than $100,000 for such mitigation. And that's it.
Whoa. 50%, but no greater than 100,000. What if it's
Yeah.
a
Oh, yeah,
stop?
what if it's
what if
only
it's a stop sign?
75,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. I was testing you. I was
That's a
testing
fair
you,
point.
Chip, to see if you were gonna be a
Thanks,
good
Pam, for catching
paralegal.
that one.
That's good. To be,
Jesus.
to 50%
Nobody
of,
working for me.
50% of the cost of such mitigation, but no greater than
Yeah,
100,000.
right.
You okay
Mike-
so far?
My question was actually to point 2, so you're comfortable with point 2 that it had been previously struck out, and you're saying that part's okay,
Yes.
given the changes to the lower portion? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last sentence,
Oh, can I stop there? Just, Chip, do you know what Pam just was referring to? I had put back in what had been the previous agreed to condition. I'm not sure it's necessary, given what we just said. But check, do you see where it says a review of crashes at the intersection, Chip?
Yeah,
Number 2.
yeah.
So I think the
Okay.
suggestion was to still include that as well as what we just dictated. Is
I
that
thought-
correct?
Aren't those the two areas in question?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, but the point is, we just resolved amending
Yeah,
the
went
part
through
that was struck. But I think the proposal by PM just now was to still include what starts with a review of crashes at the intersection.
Yeah.
And that's what says a list of recommendations provided to the board and the town could consider implementing on its own. I mean, it seems okay to have that as well,
Yeah,
but
and
just
do
want
a
to make sure.
period after map 37, block 5, all lots inclusive,
Right.
period.
And then the last
said that.
sentence is very important because
You said-
that, have you got that?
Yeah, he just
Attorney
did.
Freeman?
And that's.
Can I read it back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it says a review of the intersection of Mechanic Street and Optical Drive / North Street and the intersection of K Street and East Main Street to determine if there have been any changes to the pre-development traffic conditions. A list of recommendations, if any, shall be provided to the planning board if any changes in traffic conditions are attributable to use of South.
Changes in use?
Changes in use.
Yeah.
Changes in use of Southbridge Assessors Map 37, Block 005, all lots inclusive, period. If any suggested mitigation is implemented by the town, the applicant has agreed to contribute up to 50% of the mitigation costs, but no greater than $100,000.
And then we need that last sentence.
Yeah,
now.
that's what I'm saying. I was afraid that would get missed.
The
The
review of the
last-
review of the crashes?
No, the
No,
last
the sentence
sentence,
about the,
The
Financeability.
financing
it says that it won't
won't affect
I-
the
affect
permit.
the permit.
No, that's what we agreed was totally problematic and unacceptable going back for another special permit.
No, we wanted that now.
No, you want the one that says that, and under no circumstances will it affect the permit.
Yeah, right. Yes. And
That's
under
it.
no cir-
You
and
need
under
that-
no under no circumstances shall this condition invalidate this special permit for 4050 optical. Yeah,
I was
thought that
afraid that was gonna get
That's-
lost.
And that gives you comfort with regard to the finance.
for a lender and for my zoning opinion, right? So I might have wasted time, but it probably is redundant or unnecessary to have the business about the review of the crashes. The next sentence.
Yeah, because you're already mentioning mechanic and optical drive and.
Right.
Not
Right.
saying, so
Yeah.
we'll just cross out that last one that you had.
Yeah.
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 One more page.
Yeah, no problem.
That's two, right? And three still okay, isn't it?
It's okay.
Oh, we're back to the playground.
Yeah, who put out a lesson in? I looked it up, that's up to 19.
Are you okay with what I did, which was really clarity? It was picking up what was from an earlier condition,
No,
a number, a number.
That lesson.
What are you gonna
I
put
said,
in
what
there?
is the age? I looked at it, it's
It's
19.
interesting what they would think of a playground.
Exactly.
You know what's nice about that, actually, and they've done some good work in town with the skate park and stuff for the older kids. Is that it reduces issues of crime and vandalism.
Oh, sure.
When they have a place to go, and,
Sure.
you know, so that would be very helpful. Keep them busy and happy.
Yeah, but wouldn't a skate park be
Excluding that's cool.
insurance wise?
I'm not saying put up a skate park, I don't know what teenagers like anymore, but.
I know, that's the thing.
They
I
do
would just
cycle,
ask-
I can tell you what they like big cyclocrossing events so that it go over 3 miles and things like that.
You've got space for it up in those hills, Chip.
What's that?
You've got space right up in those.
Yeah, that's
walls.
what-
That's what we want to build.
Well, you could
You
make,
should have been upstairs. I just made a presentation of what we want to build.
you're gonna do cycle crossing? up
I
there?
can,
Yes,
at the bottom of the page under 17 that we just, dealt with, I think there's a missing number 18. It says C, but I think it should be 18.
Oh, is it? Oh, wow.
Okay,
And then the number 1, or you can change it to letters, but because then the next one after that jumps to 19. And then under D, I just made the changes, which was the same as we had on a previous condition at the end of what is
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
the end of D, that, in no event shall this impact the issuance of certificates of
Yep,
occupancy.
That was good.
And then,
I just checked it.
yeah, I should.
and then these, you were just talking about adolescents, the playground's 22. So hopefully that's okay. But then the next ones that are struck are really the same discussion, but it's because it's redundant. You don't need 23 and 24 is redundant of what we just did at 17.
Okay.
and
So Ken, if C turns 18, is
Yeah.
it still a 1 or does that go to A?
that would go to A,
Way too fast.
A, B, and C?
B, and C. And then,
And that'd be, well, so that was a D.
Yeah, actually, that works because there is already a D. Yeah.
yeah, 'cause then that's additional consideration.
Yeah.
That works. Yeah,
Are we on what would be 18D.1, 2, and 3?
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. I don't recognize. I don't know what this is, an emergency vehicle mountable.
That's that
directional-
island
That's
on the
the
K Street
island.
that they were
So
gonna
the
put.
people-
Okay,
They just,
Yeah.
love those bus drivers. They love
Okay,
it. They're
yeah.
still going in and going out.
oh my God, I can't believe it, people are like banging a left out of that driveway, like, every time I go by it,
Yeah.
making me crazy.
Okay, so those are all set. And 22.
Yeah.
We're done with that.
We're done.
now. We're done.
We're finished. Right?
I've been longer.
That's very famous.
And that's a clean copy for next meeting.
When is the next meeting? Second, first?
So the next meeting is May 1st.
You could, Mr. Chairman, you could vote approval just subject to, the signing with the changes that we just made.
You have a missing number.
Yeah, we need.
Yeah, we have one missed member.
Oh,
I think you probably would.
Yeah,
would you
I
feel
would,
more
I
comfortable?
would wait.
That way there would be 6 voting members instead of 5.
Yep. So I'm
yeah,
there.
the next meeting in 2 weeks?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's
Exact-
May 21st is the 90th day.
What is it?
May 21st is the 90th day after the public hearing. closed.
I think we're at a point where it's just get a clean copy here and then that way there, the record's clean and everything else, and we just vote on May 1st.
Okay.
Recommendation. That way
All
there,
right.
we can make sure Corey's here. Because, I mean, I invoked the Mullins rule, Corey did, I think, and I think you did once.
I don't think
No,
we did, no.
they were closed. The public hearing was already
Yeah.
closed.
Yeah, Corey would have to be here. She couldn't,
Yeah.
she can't even mull them tonight, can she? It's already done once.
No, this is
No,
not a
public
hearing.
hearing.
It's only public hearing.
It's just the
Oh.
vote.
It's only public hearings. So we should be fine. Yeah, no. I saw start pounding there. No, I think it would be a good idea to have the full board.
Yeah,
Sure, that's fine.
all right.
We put so much time into it, that we didn't make you feel better.
Thanks,
I appreciate you
Thanks for having me.
coming through here and we got through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
is the meeting you had earlier? Just so if we wanna see it, we can see what you were saying.
Actually, I'm making a presentation at town council on Monday, which is the master plan, which I've been talking about with you folks. So we're finally getting all our ducks in a row. And we need town council approval the town does, to do an application to federal and state agencies for the funding. So It's road improvements, it's some of the stuff we're talking about here, some of the stuff for 25K Street. And then an amenity package, which is access down to the waterfront, bike and pedestrian trails up in the back. Potentially a boardwalk along the river on the 50 optical side. Opening up the walkthrough over the dam, so all stuff that we've been chatting about.
Great.
Do you know, did he talk to Peg about the FEMA dam grants? Like, there's money out there and the fire chief is working, and Peg, they mentioned it at the beginning of our meeting. I don't know, were you in the room?
Yeah.
Anyway, there,
I'm sure,
Right.
but it's this way.
ask
If
Peg about it.
anybody knows if there's grants and funding available out there,
This is.
I think we were looking at the master of it.
Not bad.
Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
it's
I
something,
think you do a good job of it, and you know where there's,
This is money for what purpose?
it's dams for dams. The fire chief and Peg have been talking about it. It's something that they've been recently starting to move on. So you should talk with them and ask them what that's all about.
Okay.
I don't know the specifics of it, but
Okay.
I've been following along, and things have changed for the
Yeah,
better. So,
yeah.
and also that, sandbar,
the
in the river
Yeah.
where, what is that brook called?
where Katy Brook comes out, and
Mhm.
that's what's blowing all the water into your levee
Yeah,
off that sandbar in the heavy rain event. Because there's so much,
Yeah.
the water's being diverted, and
Yeah.
that's being diverted right towards your levee. And
Yeah.
if that wasn't there, I think it would be a huge benefit. That would be one of the first things I would look at.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think, I was thinking about that and I thought that's gonna be one of my comments on the
And there's,
draft.
and if there's backup data on that, of when we did the stream analysis back 15, 20 years ago, that was a number one concern on the analysis.
But you know what? That never came into this office. That must have been Conservation Commission. Cause I
No, came
would
to-
have seen it, but I didn't see
Came through
it.
the pond board.
People are aware of it, Chip, and they want to do something about it, and it sounds like there's funding out there for this type of stuff, so
Okay.
definitely talk to Peg.
You have copies?
I have a copy.
Okay. Because that sandbar's been bothering me. I go by it every day.
Oh, yeah, well, that's the one
Well,
down,
it shouldn't be there.
that's the one down by the pond, that's the one by the pond.
Well-
No, this is the one up on, by, Katy Brook.
Oh, okay, yeah,
That-
that's that too, but the one.
So that's by
the pond-
40 optic.
40 north of 40, by the old, where you guys tore down the old wood shop.
Gotcha.
But the
wood shop, yeah.
one,
Right
the
where
one-
Katy Brook comes out, but it's almost 3/4 of the way across the river. And it's directing all of the flow from Katy Brook directly into your levee. And it's gonna erode that corner in a big storm event. It's gonna erode that corner right away.
I didn't notice that. I was.
So it's
looking-
where it goes under Mechanic Street or the rotary right there. It comes in there.
Yeah, it's right here. You've got,
Yeah,
you got the hotel here.
Yep.
You got the river that sort of comes around right here.
Mhm.
You got Katy Brook right here.
right.
And right now, there's a sandbar that comes out almost like this, a sandbar, and it's directing all the flow directly into here. Here's the river right here. It's
Mhm.
halfway across the river, so all the heavy flow coming out of Katy Brook is being directed right into the levee wall right here.
Okay.
That's a place that I would be the most concerned on your side.
But we've been watching the other one by 40 and
Oh,
50
yeah.
grow. Until now, there's solid land there. It's almost an island.
You can walk it.
You can
Mhm.
see grass growing.
Well, I do
mean,
have
it's
to
been
say-
growing for like,
They did prep the fountains for the pond today. I saw, when I.
Step in the right direction.
Yeah, I saw the fountains are in.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Okay,
Well, thank you.
thank you,
thanks, everybody.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks. Good night.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, we're never gonna get to this. But excavation.
No, you guys with
Oh, thank you.
the infrastructure project. we're working on.
Okay.
Thank you.
So with regards to the zoning bylaw, I spoke to the town manager. And he's to get me the minutes, because it happened, I thought it happened at a town council meeting. It happened at a general government subcommittee meeting where they were talking about oh, this is what the planning board should look at. So I'm waiting for the minutes from that, from the town manager. What he also suggested, and I think this was what the board was talking about, was having some sort of joint meeting. He suggested having a joint meeting with either planning and development subcommittee, where obviously councilors would be present, and or the general government subcommittee meeting. Just to kind of talk through, you know, what they may have identified. The building inspector also is preparing a document which is identifying, you know, some areas of conflict where he's finding it hard to
Yeah.
navigate some of the bylaw. When
Yep.
he has to provide the zoning determinations to those that are requesting them. So that's kind of what's going on as far as people are talking about zoning bylaw amendments, but of course it just kind of trickles down. And then, you know, it's like, Ken, talk to the planning board about zoning bylaw amendment. It's like, what zoning bylaw amendment? So that is what is forthcoming, are those notes to the board.
That bylaw needs a hard look, whole thing does.
Which bylaw?
It's only, it's like, well, I knew that was a couple of years ago when we were doing when I was doing Big Y.
Yeah.
They asked for a zoning opinion, and I looked at it and I said, no, it's all pre-existing non-conforming use now. The whole stretch where Big Y is, and they've done, the people who did the bylaw did that all over town.
This
Yeah,
is
but
what
we just changed that.
What, we changed, yeah, we changed,
changed the
we had to
zone.
change it so I can get so I can get the
Exactly.
financing. through the-
Exactly.
through the transfer.
Right.
But I was looking at it and it's like, okay, you have one boarding kennel in town. Which used to be my in-laws, but it's now pre-existing, it's now a pre-existing non-conforming use. It's like, why? You know, and Jack was bugging me at the pancake breakfast at Lions Club. He said, you know, it's like, it's a dentist who wants to locate downtown, it's a special permit. Why?
Yeah, we went through.
Yeah, we talked about that, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's that kind of stuff.
Well, we've been spending what? I mean, ever since I got here, and you guys were doing it before I got here, to be looking over our zoning.
Right.
So we've been going through it, meeting after meeting after
We
meeting.
bounce between topics, as.
We had, unfortunately, we've gone through all these, we had them redlined, a lot of them with the previous plan, but I don't know if you could even find all the stuff we went through.
So I guess I'll work with Dave to identify what actually the planning board may have. Because you provide a recommendation to the town council to have those readings. So presumably you've talked about certain topics and have gotten that far at the very least.
There are months and months and years of work that we did with Eric. I mean, I think we should reach out to Eric if needed, because I mean, that is a substantial amount of work that was done to change and streamline those bylaws.
Especially if they're going to be the bylaws that have been identified by others in town.
Yeah, we may have already addressed it.
Yeah, there's some.
I think a lot of the stuff we've
I
addressed.
was talking to a broker yesterday about, well, one of the reasons I called the ethics commission today, but about land my wife and brother-in-law own, and it's like it's zoned office research, and it's like, it basically is kind of, what on earth is that?
Mhm.
We,
Oh, that was a Boston term.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah,
That was
that.
What on earth is that?
That was that consultant that came
Yeah,
in.
That was a disaster.
and that took the place of light industry, if I recall.
yeah,
I mean, that's the other thing. When we were supposedly doing a comprehensive look in 2018, and we had a consultant, and it just all, not to get into it, but it all went crazy.
Oh.
So now we had some nice things that we had developed that were working, and they're gone. And we're always finding things that we thought were there and no longer are.
A lot of stuff got, for some reason, a lot of stuff got changed from the final review from the planning board to when it went up to council. And we don't know if council changed a lot of stuff at the time or what. There was a lot of changes.
The counselors I've talked to, it wasn't them. You know, the package, they voted the package that was presented.
yeah.
See, I think the consultant.
I think
maybe
we
did a lot of.
we say no, Mike, and she agreed with us and then read it the way she wanted it.
Yeah, I mean, I, at one point I told Jack, I would basically repeal this, put back what you had, start over.
how much money was spent on her?
$60,000.
It was, I told him, quite frankly, I said, if you spent, I didn't know what the number was, but I figured it was probably a third of what should have been spent to do it right.
Yeah.
Because they, not only did they do the bylaws, they dealt with the map. And they messed the map up too.
If we change back to what we had pre-2018, it would be a poop show.
Well, we
I think
actually
the
worked on
thing
the
is,
map.
we've gone through all the zoning changes. We gotta find the red line that we did with Eric.
Yeah.
And because we've gone through a lot of this, and a lot of the stuff, Mike, we've changed and took out of there and we've been tweaked
We've
and.
been to the council twice and
Right.
we passed what we wanted.
Yes, on certain sections.
But we changed the map.
Dealing with the problems that hit you in the face, basically.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's it, yeah.
But then we went through the rest of it and like the table of uses, okay? And
What was
I
that?
mean, we've got a lot of changes to the table of uses. Did we, and also the square footage requirements and so forth for per zones and stuff like that.
Road frontage.
Frontage area and a lot of that. That's all been redlined for modifications, but
And the board has, and the council has approved them?
No, we haven't.
No.
Oh.
That's all sitting in Eric's.
We had done all this work and then Eric left and then you came and now we don't know where it is.
Okay.
All that years of work.
But we did change the maps. Those map changes we did.
Yes.
And
You added those overlays.
We,
Right,
well.
and
we-
Overlay, but also we did the map, we did the change down
Some
Down
zone-
by
down by Big
Ashland.
Y.
Yeah.
the whole section down by Big Y all the way up to the AO.
We've increased the central core area or stuff like that.
We took care of the up by Woodstock Road.
So, increase the central core area to catch, Upper Main Street and a lot of Hamilton Street because of what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Do we have an historical preservation
District, no.
committee?
We
district?
do,
Yes,
yeah.
we do.
All right,
Local
because are you
historic-
aware that they're, someone has bought or is going to buy the bank, the old bank building?
Southbridge Credit Union.
Yeah, they're gonna move Cornerstone over. They wanna tear down the Lenti building.
Yeah.
And put a drive-through in there. The problem with, that people have come to me and are talking about
They're
is,
not- They're not the credit union. building.
Not the credit union, it's
Santander building.
Southbridge
The Santander.
yeah, the Santander. On the side, there is artwork.
Yeah, that was redone. When the bank built the parking lot and tore down the building for the parking lot.
Right.
That was in between and exposed it, and the bank paid to have it repainted and stuff
No,
like
they
that.
didn't. They just put a. I
No,
talked to the
They
guy
just
that
preserved
wrote
it
it.
is what I heard.
I forgot his
No,
name. Was it Mike?
That was when the Savers used to be where that parking lot is.
Correct.
Okay,
When they tore it, when it was Southbridge Savings Bank at that point, when they bought that parcel from Savers and tore it down to build a parking lot,
that was exposed.
that was exposed.
Yeah,
What is the
but
art?
they enhanced it. It was,
It was a,
The
it was an
Lenti,
advertising.
it's a Coca-Cola, it's a Coca-Cola advertising.
Coca-Cola and Lenti Brothers.
The old David Lenty's there too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
But they did not repaint it. They put a covering over it.
But they
And the
touched
guy,
up
the
area.
guy that told me about it, he was the one that went to the bank and said, don't let that go. And he said, eventually it will just fade away, but we'll have it for quite a while.
what I'm asking
That's
is, if, I mean, whoever has it would have the right to tear the building down, right? I mean, even if it
Correct.
does have historical.
Cornerstone.
Main Street.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
Right on that wall.
would we have, who would you
here.
talk to about
Came back.
trying to
Parking.
save
All of a sudden,
the
all of a
art?
sudden,
it's painted in the brick. They've been there for, there's no saving it.
There's no saving the brick.
No saving it. It's painted right on the brick.
And it's gonna fade away anyways.
But it hasn't.
But
for
in
how many
answer,
years?
but in answer to your
The
question,
building is a Legos. I mean, there's nothing to it.
Yeah.
Because of the brick box.
It's just Coke.
That's it?
regarding your question about the, so there's something called a local historic district, and there is a committee that was put into place way back in 2002.
Steve Brady's committee.
Yeah. And they did a lot of work on it. And then, I don't remember, it got stalled. They picked it up again, then they were working on a big anniversary thing and they dropped it. And I think they're doing other things now. The thing of it is, that would be a good thing, but it is very controversial. Because it goes along with a bylaw. You adopt a bylaw with that. And it becomes very official, and the bylaw says what you can do and what you can't do. So people that don't want to do it have called it an anti-demolition bylaw.
Well, that's what the historical commission is working on. Is a demolition delay bylaw.
Okay, but that's not the same as
Because that has the
this historical district.
Is that an historical building?
It's. It may
Definition,
have been at
please.
some point in time, the way the historical commission wants to define historical. Yeah, it is anything 50 years old, so it changes tomorrow.
Is that what they
But-
said?
That's what they have, it says.
Anything older than 50 years?
Anything older than 50 years, that's what they have. But they also have criteria in there for the character of the building,
Right.
and that building basically has no character.
No, it's been
Okay.
so,
I mean, and
So the
quite frankly-
only value to that building is that piece of artwork, which,
Yeah, that's it. I
Well,
mean,
you can't write a bylaw for one building. I mean, there will be other buildings and
Yeah.
maybe it's not 50 years, but maybe it's 100 years. I don't know where the lines are, but obviously there's some incredible buildings in this town that
Well, there are.
deserve preservation.
But you know, the thing of it is, what I'm trying to say is there's two different categories. Right now, there's the Center Village District that is a Massachusetts and Southbridge Historic District. That's the one the Historical Commission has control over. But the other one that Steve Brady and his group are trying to do is a federal one. And it goes along with a bylaw, and the teeth that it has depends on the bylaw that is voted in with it. But it's not a demolition, it's not a demolition delay, a lot of people said it was a demolition prevention thing. It's not that way. They can't even tell you about the colors you can use. But there are teeth in it depending upon the bylaw, and there is a draft bylaw. And we should probably all be interested in that.
Yeah, we don't want any more auto parts stores or churches with tinted windows on Main Street. You know, I think that there's probably other alternatives. we
Well,
could be
that's
coming
the
for.
reason.
problem is.
Yeah, I
That's the
agree.
reason
Churches
why.
need- with a
But-
Doberman,
I
you're
know,
not gonna
but
change the
also-
churches.
Well, you
churches are
can't,
exempt.
Yeah,
you can't
That's
stop
exactly-
that.
churches are exempt in every zone.
But the thing
So is
is,
the educational.
Yeah,
yeah, but we're talking about design guidelines, but
Yeah.
the thing is, but the other thing is, the reason why a dentist needs a special permit is because I think that might have been put in because we have so many inappropriate things on the first floor. So we thought that I think the thinking was certain uses would need a special permit so you could mitigate the effect they would have.
Correct.
You lose, if you have a downtown, I think the thing is, if there's a gap in the smile, you take out a building. So you had storefronts lined up and then you have a gap. If you have a gap of 20 feet or more, you've lost that.
I think it started years ago when Clem closed off his storefront. And I think that's when it all
I mean,
started.
I went back after it was a demolition delay bylaw, and it's like. You know, they have constitutional problems.
Yeah.
I mean, they have
Yeah.
requirements that they allow you into a building.
Can I ask you a question? I'm new to town. I mean, I've only been here 9 years. I don't know who you are.
I knew it.
I am an almost retired lawyer.
Put it this way.
Almost retired lawyer from Southbridge.
Yep.
Okay, so
That-
what kind of law do you do?
Mostly transactional.
That knows
Okay.
basically land use law beyond belief.
Okay, so you've specialized in land use. So transactional isn't like a lot of exchange of property, real estate? Okay.
All there is, say everything.
I mean, everybody has an asset.
The
In a
Wells
place.
Center.
Oh, you did the Wells Center.
Did Wells, I did
That's
CPS, I
beautiful.
did the cancer center, I did the redevelopment of Big Y.
The hospital,
That looks
years
nice.
ago.
Well, what they just did, you didn't have anything to do with that.
Which one?
Just Big Y just did a whole new.
Oh,
No,
no,
it's
no,
not facade.
that's big.
No,
value
that's
doing.
a facade doing them.
Yeah.
Them doing it.
It was a
That-
whole.
that-
Oh.
No,
Plot of land.
I did Big Y when they tore down most of the old shopping center and built this
The
one,
new one.
and we had to deal with, the flood zone.
Yeah.
And basically scoping the parking lot.
To away
so that
for
we kept
mitigation.
We kept the line where it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why when they wanted to put an addition on Abishans,
Mhm.
because there's so much there, there was no more area, low enough area for flood mitigation. So they could not expand down on the Abishans.
Well, you've gotta find something, you've gotta.
Or they would have had
gotta
to
find
raise
someone-
it up and put it underneath the building.
You've gotta find another place to put
Yeah,
water.
to put it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So. You're not just a lawyer, though, it sounds like you're also aware of usage and infrastructure.
Yeah, I know, I was chuckling, I was sitting here chuckling to some extent over the whole traffic stuff in our office, because I can remember. From the fifties, when, 3,500 people were let out of work at one time.
Most of them walked though.
Yeah, there are a lot less cars back then.
Couldn't use.
I
Main
can
Street.
remember when AO got let out, North Street became one way.
Wow.
North Street became one way, straight out of the gate. And if you were on the right side,
Also they.
yep, they
Oh,
went like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
That makes sense.
and
Yeah,
you
that
know,
was-
even in the 1980s. When AO got out,
Traffic
the
was-
traffic was just horrendous. There
Yeah.
was bumper to bumper all along Main Street. So you know where I live, so I didn't go out at that time because I knew I would just be.
Dutcher Street was more highly
Yeah.
traveled, and so was Hamilton Street
Yeah,
years
one
ago.
of the frustrating things I had a couple of years ago when Ron San Angelo was here and Rosemary was here. A client, but it's the ability to do it now, I think it's pretty much gone. Had the ability to, if the town would agree to one lot on the opposite side of the far end of the airport, to throwing that lot in. We have like a less than a 2 mile road from 20 to the south end to the north end of the airport,
yeah.
okay? And I think if you had that, and then you could get from Commercial Drive to 169
Yeah.
that way, you know.
Would have added a lot, I
would add
remember.
a hell of a lot.
Well, there would have been.
But they couldn't see the need for it.
There was that extension of 49 at one point in time. It was-
Well, that's it,
But
that's it,
effectively, that's it.
that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
basically, if you, on 20 now, if you see kind of across from where the back roads to the state police barracks on the
Yeah.
turnpike,
Yeah.
there's a cut, that's where it would have come out.
Yeah,
Hmm.
But that's gonna be another, from what I understand, it may be a Walmart warehouse.
the Walmart warehouse.
Okay.
That's, I can't believe that opportunity came up again. Because remember,
San Angelo and Scrivens mixed it.
wow, after we were all weeping because it fell through before.
And that would have gone to our commercial drive, right?
Yep.
It would have connected with
What
our.
connected with Commercial Drive. They mixed it. I had a meeting with my client with those, and they just, I'll say it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Before we stop talking about the zoning bylaw, one thing that did happen with that 2018, which affects a lot of properties. We had been advised by Copeland and Page to create the bylaw that we called 501.1, which meant that if a use was not listed, we could do it by special permit, and the attorney that I forgot her name, that I was working with, advised me that she said for things like the hospital and the Fair Plaza and AO, if you do 501.1, you can make a comprehensive one that covers a lot of uses.
We'd
Or
already-
specialized.
We'd already done that for the hospital.
We did it for
Yes,
others
we
too,
did.
but now it's knocked out, Mike.
She
She
took
said
it
it's
out.
no
It's-
good,
it's-
She said it was illegal.
and that really, it bothers
I
me.
think the difference was, the thought was 501.1, if I recall, because that makes sense that you would have a comprehensive permit for something like the hospital. And presumably, someone can come into
Others
town.
too.
501.1 is if it wasn't listed as
As a use?
As a use.
We
then
did
you can
about
apply for-
5 of
You're never,
them.
you're never going to,
List every use.
with every use.
No.
Never
I agree.
happen.
So I think it was this notion that it's not typical that you would have something like a use variance, that sometimes the zoning, but
It's gotta be specific to the statute, but you can
Right.
have it.
Yeah.
It's just not typical.
it's not
that's what he's
typical,
It's not typical.
Not
Yeah.
typical.
You're there a lot.
saying. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
he was saying that it
Yeah.
can happen.
right?
But we did do it for the hospital, and there were 5 of them, I think. And I think we might have even done it for AO, I'm not sure, but the thing is, when the hospital had new changes, we just amended 501.1. They added a building, we amended it, it was great.
Hey, talk about that. The last one you presented for the hospital was the parking lot across from the spa
Oh,
on the
yeah, I
corner of
remember
South.
that.
Okay, now they're using it as outdoor storage for, and it's the violation of zoning.
It looks awful.
What
I can't address it.
No, you
Yes.
can't. Yeah.
I have another question. I'm still stuck on this building. I understand demolition of a building that's falling down or is, like the building with Zoe's in it, somebody would have to put a lot of money in it to make it. I mean, that building
building's
is,
in good shape.
I thought the roof was coming down.
No,
No, the building's a good, except
Oh,
for the.
great shape.
the windows,
The biggest headache with that building is the front facade. They literally built it over floor to ceiling glass.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
No,
You got rid of-
the woodwork in the front,
Yeah.
yeah, the glass that went from the sidewalk to the ceiling is underneath the woodwork.
Yeah.
So they just need
So
to
if
pull it
somebody
off.
breaks the glass, it's a huge problem.
Didn't we have a new owner for that building? Isn't there a new owner that's just come in for that building? I mean,
I think a renter that's supposed to rent it.
and Zoe.
Don't forget, no, because
Whole building.
the Kozowskis,
Yeah,
the Kozowskis own that
we
building.
still own it. I thought it was a
But
different owner now.
the mother passed away about a month ago.
Could be, I mean, they still
She
own
did.
that. They
Yeah.
own the- they own
It's
the-
now it goes down to the kid,
we've been dealing with those kids for a
but the
long time.
mother passed away about a month ago. I saw it.
They own the central Street too.
Yeah.
Every time, if you look at any junky buildings
They
in the
own what on
downtown,
Central Street?
Yeah.
All
Um,
the ones that are in poor shape?
Yes.
That's the ones?
before we wrap up, I just have one question, because I had an offer made today and I need to check in with you on, conflict of interest. Are we done otherwise?
Yeah, we're done otherwise, I
Yeah.
guess. You got anything more?
I think
Mike,
just an
Doug?
update, Pam joined us in a first meeting of the housing production plan. We got a presentation by CMRPC.
uh-huh,
It's the town's first housing production plan. There was grant funding and CMRPC is gonna be working with various people in the town. Katie Yoder is running that.
When was
but-
that meeting? She didn't,
2:00
was
today,
today?
yeah, today.
I never got an email on it.
Oh, there was a Zoom sent out. It's hard to find though.
That was really
But I,
last year.
yeah.
Okay, so we'll just make sure, I mean, the thing is, it was a presentation. I will make sure to share that I can share with the board. It was a presentation about what a housing production plan is. But basically, it's most likely going to be daytime meetings for town staff and others that can volunteer to participate. But Katie and the consultant will be sending out like a doodle to
mhm.
see what availability it may be like for folks.
Part of what's really exciting about this, is that currently we are obviously below the threshold for 40B requirements from the state for affordable housing. And there's a lot of housing, obviously, as we know, out there that might potentially qualify, but just isn't deeded as affordable housing. So by doing this study, we are looking potentially for ways to fold in what's already here, so we don't get mandated to build more projects.
But it
And
isn't
also-
just about that, is
No,
it?
no, it's strategically, this is one part that I was excited about because this is something we're dealing with, obviously,
Yeah,
a lot. So we might be able to find ways to fulfill our obligations, RE 40B, without putting up tons of new
40B.
40B. So that's exciting, but I mean, it's an incredible group. I strongly recommend any of you being involved because the amount of learning that we're going to do, and they didn't know about Southbridge, so there was a lot of onboarding of the consultants.
Mhm.
Yeah.
About the nature of our town. And I think that the product that we get out of this will allow us to be really strategic in a way that considers where the town's at now and what's coming at us from the east
Mhm.
with regard to development.
So you'll be looking at the work that was done with the master plan and everything, and
Yeah,
I think it has great potential, but I think Southbridge, like every town, is unique, and the housing issues are also unique.
yeah,
And some of them are, there's a lot of subpar housing, but
Yeah.
whenever we've been doing planning, what comes from the citizenry is that what they really want is balanced housing, balanced choices. Because it's not good that all the poor housing is in one town. It should be, well, first of all, it's too bad to
Yeah.
have any, but
mixed rate.
So I hope that it
Yeah.
will be addressing all those things.
Yeah, well, I know, for example, like up on the water supply building, that's gonna be fair market value.
Which will
rather
be
than-
very close to low-income housing. That's the whole thing.
Right, and you
about-
want that mix of rates or mix of rent levels.
But in Southbridge, because of our
Yes.
demographics,
Right,
what you could get for a 40B rent is very close to the market rents that we have here, what you can get.
yes,
So that's
Yeah.
why we don't have a lot of 40Bs. The only one we have is 5Ks, and
Wells, there's Tag, there's.
They're not 40Bs.
Wells is not.
they are certified though,
Yeah, they're certified
Yeah.
inventory units.
yes.
Yeah,
And some of the
Inventory
stuff in this office is certified
Yep.
because they had to sign fair rent agreements.
They're deeded.
Yeah.
Definition of certified?
Certified, so it has to be
sorry.
certified by the Executive
No.
Office of Housing and Livable Communities, formerly DHCD. That basically says that that unit in perpetuity or through a period of time, anywhere from 30 years to forever, is going to be available to those making 80% of the area median income or lower. typically.
80% of the area being the area of Southbridge or
Worcester.
Worcester? Okay,
Worcester.
yeah, good.
Yeah, so that's what a certified unit is, and I think Pam's point of identifying the natural occurring affordable housing. Which are the units around here that are not deeded, is trying to figure out how to bring those on so
Mhm.
that something like 515 K Street. Would have to come before the planning board rather than go through a comprehensive permit,
Right.
something like that again.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
because that didn't work out well, did it?
The infill, could you talk a little bit to that, Ken? I thought that was really interesting.
So I know that we brought this up to the board, or I brought this up to the board because this was being discussed as a starting place for development when there was probably, I think if there was some fire or some reason why a building had to come down, lots were not being, what's the word? They were not making, they were not meeting the minimum.
Because they were under
requirements.
5,000 square feet.
Right. So, looking at a way to permit them, whatever that may look like.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I
Okay.
think you can see a bunch of them, like you go up High Street, going up the hill on High Street, there was one on the left-hand side. You could have put a nice, you could build on that lot, and I don't think it would affect the neighborhood at all.
So if it was built to a triple
You're not gonna
decker,
build a single family there.
No,
Right.
right, you're required to build whatever the
Yeah.
zoning
Yeah.
dictates.
And the question becomes whether or not you can build it financially viably.
Correct. Exactly.
yep. Well, it's why triple deckers, as I understand it, did so well in Southbridge prior to the AO leaving is that you had owner occupied. And it made it financially viable to live in it and then rent out the other
Well, and the
units.
other thing is they cared about the way it looked.
Well, that's why you want the owner occupied,
Yeah.
right?
Now, the Wellses lent money to their employees to build 3 deckers on the condition that they would rent the other floor to other employees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that ownership of your community is really good and encouraging that. We've had a lot of millennials all of a sudden coming at us buying our triple deckers, and I actually had forwarded, I don't think I sent it to the board.
Are they living there as
That's
well?
good, yeah.
There's an article in Boston.com about millennials moving out of Boston. And now even Worcester is getting too expensive for them. And so in this article,
For buying 3 deckers.
for buying 3
Yeah.
deckers, they recommended going to towns like Southbridge and Webster. So they're already mapping us
But are they
To
buying
send-
them to live there or as
Yes.
in?
Yeah, to live
Yeah.
there and rent.
Well, that's
to live and
wonderful.
rent. So we
That's the way to
are,
go. I started, I had a 2-family house and I went in there first, lived in
Yeah,
the first
that's how
floor,
mine
rented the
was.
second floor, paid half the mortgage and it was ideal.
yeah, so we're seeing it, but my point is that there's an opportunity headed our way. It's already happening and they're now starting to talk about it publicly, which is really exciting for us to get private capital investment into dilapidated multifamily residences, and that's exciting.
But I mean, a lot of owners are reluctant to
Yeah.
tie themselves to.
I know.
They're not gonna tie themselves to the requirements that the government wants.
Which requirements of the government wants?
Generally, when the government's providing that kind of money, there's going to be something.
This is,
What are we talking
this
about?
is what Katie was talking
Oh,
about.
you mean with the deeded,
Yeah,
For-
deed
okay.
restrictions.
Yeah,
The deed
deed
restriction.
right,
I would never take a deed
I
restriction.
would need it.
right.
I mean, I'll be honest, we're talking about sidewalks. It was 5 or 6 years ago, we sold the big house and downsized. One of the things, if the house had a sidewalk in front of it, we didn't want that. Because we didn't want to deal with it.
In a downtown area, because.
Good, well, you have to clean it, you have to clean it. The owner has to clean the sidewalk in front of them.
It's so crazy.
Anyway, we woke up, it was just that was off the table. People were brokers, don't even show them to us.
It's so interesting because where I grew up, we had sidewalks, like Wayland is fairly rural. And we had within, I think it was a mile of any school, we had sidewalks the whole way. And the town took care of them, the people didn't take care
If
of them.
Wayland had the money to take care of it, that's different.
See, these are owner, these are
You can
owner
be
problems.
fined if you don't have your sidewalk cleared within
Yeah.
a certain period. of
I
time.
Well,
like
the town-
sidewalks.
the
I
town
think they're
has-
safe.
The town doesn't repair them like the snow off.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's something we have to look at.
They they do, well, they're very expensive. It's expensive to maintain sidewalks.
Wow.
But I mean, I've been
That's why
on,
we want concrete. instead of
right,
asphalt.
so I mean, here in this office, they do a lot of sidewalk reconstruction, and I'm telling you, it's very
Very
expensive.
expensive. When you look at the stuff on the far end of Elm Street, it's falling apart.
Yeah,
Well, that's why,
some of the stuff we did
mm,
is, you know,
Hell,
like,
some of the new
Home Street
sidewalks they just
wasn't
put in
done.
on Main Street are falling apart too.
But I'm, I look at that.
Are those the ones we did and
There's
they
not
worked up and
tractors,
redid?
Willow Lane and Colonial Drive. It's like there's sidewalks to nowhere.
yeah,
that won't always be the case, though. We are growing. I think for me, I want to see pedestrian and vehicular traffic separated. Not in rural areas, but in places where there's sufficient amount of density. I think it's something that should be done and it's encouraged,
Well, probably when you're dropping these little subdivisions here and there,
right?
and there's a mile worth of no sidewalk.
Well,
Like
like
the
my
high
subdivision. My subdivision, we waived the sidewalks. Okay?
Yeah.
There's no sidewalks, I mean, in front of West Street School is the closest sidewalk.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know why they're putting subdivisions out there in single family zones anyway. You know how I feel about that.
I know, but that's what.
Well, I'm on Hillside Road and
You do?
we have no sidewalks and people walk there all the time. We walk.
I think
all-
they should put it on
we
the
walk
farm
all the
on
way up to
Torrey Road.
Cohasset
How do you
Country
explain that?
Club and make the loop.
I grew up there.
Yeah, I
I
love
saw
that
that.
neighborhood. I mean.
Oh, yeah, it's going to
Hillside,
around that.
We're right beside the Lenty's house. We live.
On calendar, I said,
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
There's a meeting, but I can't.
My sister-
Well, what's wrong?
I had to
Fourth house up on the right,
Zoom.
Okay, and what's her
And
husband's
then-
name?
Bruce.
Oh, I didn't know that's who you were. You're Barbara's.
She let you know.
Oh, yeah, no, we live right
I
beside
saw-
Barbara and Bruce
Oh.
in the White House,
Oh, okay.
between
Here, this is
Lenty and
Oh, between.
Third,
between what-
I was in
between-
Southbridge.
Yeah,
Well,
we're the
that's
ones
right.
having.
Over there.
Can I make a suggestion that we
Right over there, right? It's-
adjourn?
I
Can
thought you were
I
on
just-
Woodstock Road all
I
this
just
time.
have one question. Can I,
Oh, yeah.
I need advice. I went for a walk with Pip Santos today over the fields and, I had reached out to them saying, you know, I appreciate that you have taken such good care of family farm fields. And so we met and we talked and he has asked me, and I think I don't know what the procedure is, but he said, would you like to be on the board at Nature's Classroom? Which is, I love what they do, so it would be very interesting and exciting for me. My concern is that if ever that parcel came up for
You'd
development
have to
again,
recuse yourself.
You just have to review yourself.
I'd have to recuse myself from that vote.
Not even a question.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
But that's all you have to do.
Is he
You
nice?
just have to
is-
recuse yourself from the vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I talk? Like,
Yeah.
can I
You
talk?
can talk as a resident of the town of Southbridge.
So I would have to go over there?
Yep,
Yep, you have to leave that.
you have to step off the board.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I called the ethics commission, I stopped by Maggie, but I didn't swear to get sworn in because I've got one deal where somebody else is gonna go before another board, but if it passes, my client benefits. I don't know if that's a problem, I may end up at that hearing. And the other one is, Kerry and Paul are looking to sell 50 some odd acres.
Yeah.
Which needs to be rezoned, and is that an issue?
You'll just have to recuse.
From what, that particular part of
That-
rezoning?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So you're not retired yet? You're semi-retired?
He told me he retired. I saw him
I
4 months ago. He told me he was
closed the
retiring.
I closed the office the end of January, but I still have open
Yeah.
files.
Yeah.
And actually, I got 2 more today, but I mean, they're not things that take a long time, like real estate sales.
Where was
Yeah.
your office?
Next door.
Was right next door, second floor.
Second floor next door.
Okay.
It was a campaign. Okay,
All right, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor? Since we're all here.
Yes.
Going to the first.
Okay, you gotta
Going to first, thank you, everybody.
pay attention.